In exactly 47 seconds, Evelyn Hart would stop breathing. In 93 seconds, she would be dead. But right now, in this perfect moment of candlelight and wine, she had no idea that her entire empire, her brilliant mind, her carefully constructed future, was about to rest in the hands of a complete stranger who had every reason to look away. Welcome to tonight's story. I'm about to share something that will make you question everything you think you know about power, heroism, and the invisible threads that connect us all. Stay with me until the very end. This journey will change how you see the world. And when it does, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels, how many lives it touches, because what happened on that October evening didn't just save one life. It rippled outward in ways no one could have predicted. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The autumn rain had finally stopped, leaving the streets of Seattle slick and gleaming under the soft glow of streetlights. The city exhaled with relief, its usual frantic pulse mellowing into something almost peaceful. Inside Le Bernardin, a restaurant where reservations required both patience and a healthy bank account, the evening crowd murmured in that particular way wealthy people do when they're trying to appear relaxed, but are actually calculating their next merger, their next acquisition, their next triumph. Evelyn Hart sat alone at table 17, a small two-seater tucked into a corner where the ambient lighting seemed to have been designed specifically to make powerful people feel momentarily human. She was 34 years old, though most people guessed younger until they looked into her eyes. Those eyes had closed billion-dollar deals, stared down boardrooms full of men twice her age, and occasionally, in moments like this, stared at nothing at all, just trying to remember what it felt like to be a person instead of a position. Her phone lay face down on the white tablecloth, a small act of rebellion she allowed herself once a week. Tuesday nights were hers. No emails, no calls from her COO about the Jakarta expansion, no texts from her mother asking when she'd find time to settle down, as if building a tech empire from scratch at 26 wasn't settling enough. The wine arrived first, a 2015 Chateau Margaux that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Evelyn didn't order it to show off. She ordered it because she'd earned it, because she'd spent the last 8 years turning a dorm room idea into Hart Technologies, a company that now employed 4,000 people across 11 countries. Because tonight, just for an hour, she wanted to taste something that had nothing to do with market projections or shareholder value. She lifted the glass, watched the burgundy liquid catch the light, and allowed herself the smallest smile. The sommelier had been right. It was magnificent. She took a slow sip, closing her eyes to better appreciate the complexity of flavors. She never saw it coming. Across the restaurant, separated by perhaps 40 feet and an entire economic universe, Lucas Reed sat at a table near the kitchen doors. It wasn't the best seat. You could hear the clatter of dishes and the muffled shouts of the line cooks. But Lucas didn't mind. He wasn't here for ambiance. He was here because 3 months ago, his daughter Maya had looked up from her hospital bed during one of her bad weeks and made him promise something. "Dad," she'd said, her 8-year-old voice raspy from the breathing treatments, "when I get better, you have to do something nice for yourself. Not for me. For you." Maya had a rare autoimmune condition that turned simple colds into week-long hospital stays, that made every parent-teacher conference a gamble because Lucas never knew if he'd have to run out mid-sentence when the school nurse called. He'd learned to read the subtle signs of her distress before the monitors started beeping, to advocate fiercely with doctors who sometimes forgot that parents could be experts too, to function on 4 hours of sleep and still show up to his warehouse job with enough energy to make it through a 10-hour shift. Tonight, Maya was having a good week. She was staying with Mrs. Chen next door, probably watching the same animated movie for the 40th time, completely content. And Lucas had remembered his promise. So here he was, in a restaurant that felt slightly too formal for his jeans and button-down shirt, ordering the cheapest entree on the menu and still feeling like he was splurging. The waiter, a young man with perfectly styled hair and the kind of condescending politeness that came from serving people who tipped more than they valued, had just brought Lucas's meal. Chicken. Simple. Nothing that would require him to Google how to eat on his phone under the table. Lucas cut into it, took his first bite, and felt something in his chest unclench. It was good. Really good. When was the last time he'd tasted something that wasn't microwaved or eaten standing up at the kitchen counter while helping Maya with homework? He was reaching for his water glass when he heard it. A sound that didn't belong. Not a gasp exactly. More like the absence of sound, a sudden vacuum where breath should be. His head snapped up with the trained alertness of someone who'd spent years listening for the signs that everything was about to go wrong. His eyes scanned the restaurant automatically, the same way he scanned Maya's face every morning looking for fever, for pallor, for the subtle wrongness that preceded crisis. That's when he saw her. The woman at table 17 had gone completely still. Her wine glass was suspended halfway between the table and her lips, her other hand gripping the edge of the table. But it was her eyes that Lucas recognized, wide, not with surprise, but with the sudden animalistic understanding that something had gone catastrophically wrong inside her own body. Around her, the restaurant continued its oblivious symphony. A couple 3 tables over laughed at some private joke. A businessman gestured emphatically while his companion nodded. The sommelier discussed vintage years with a table of 4 who were clearly more interested in being seen drinking expensive wine than actually tasting it. No one else had noticed. No one else was watching as the woman's face began to change color, as her free hand moved to her throat in the universal gesture of choking. Lucas was already moving. He didn't think about it. Thinking was what got people killed in emergencies. Thinking was the enemy of action. He'd learned that in the NICU when Maya was 3 days old and had stopped breathing, when the nurse had screamed for help, and Lucas had simply acted, doing the infant CPR he'd learned in a panicked YouTube spiral during his wife's pregnancy. The nurse had said later that his calmness had probably saved precious seconds. Lucas had thrown up in the hospital bathroom afterward, but in the moment there had been no room for fear. There was no room for it now. He knocked his chair back. It clattered against the floor, finally drawing attention, and crossed the distance to table 17 in 4 long strides. The woman's eyes found his, and in them he saw something he'd seen too many times in Maya's eyes. The terrible awareness of the body's betrayal, the primal fear of suffocation. "Ma'am," Lucas said, his voice calm and clear, the voice he used with Maya when she was panicking and needed someone to be the anchor. "I'm going to help you. Nod if you can hear me." She nodded, barely. Her lips were starting to turn blue. The restaurant had finally noticed. A woman at the nearest table gasped. Someone shouted, "Oh my God, is she okay?" A man in an expensive suit pulled out his phone, his hands shaking so badly he nearly dropped it. The waiter who'd served Evelyn stood frozen, his face pale, completely out of his depth. "Call 911, Lucas said without looking at any of them, his full attention on the woman in front of him. "Someone call 911 right now." 3 people pulled out phones. No one moved to help. Lucas stepped behind Evelyn's chair. "I need you to stand up," he said. "Can you stand?" She pushed back from the table, rising on unsteady legs. Lucas could see her trembling, could see the way her hands clutched at nothing, seeking purchase in a moment where everything solid had become unreliable. He positioned himself behind her, one arm wrapping around her waist, his fist finding the spot just below her ribcage. His other hand covered his fist. He'd practiced this motion maybe 5 times in his life, twice in the mandatory first aid course the warehouse required, 3 times on the training dummy at Maya's hospital during a parent education day. But he'd watched the demonstration video 17 times after that. Couldn't sleep until he'd memorized every detail, because what if Maya choked? What if he was the only one there? What if everything depended on him doing this one thing perfectly? "This is going to hurt," he told Evelyn quietly, "but it's going to save your life." He pulled inward and upward with controlled force. Nothing happened. Evelyn's hands grasped at his arm, not fighting him, but clinging to him, her body's last desperate hope. He could feel her heartbeat racing against his forearm, could feel her trying to cough, trying to breathe, trying to do anything to dislodge whatever was killing her. "Emergency services are on the way," someone shouted uselessly. On the way wasn't good enough. In the time it took an ambulance to arrive, brain cells would start dying. In the time it took paramedics to push through Seattle traffic, Evelyn Hart would become a statistic, another person who choked in a restaurant while everyone watched. Lucas repositioned slightly, finding better leverage. Again, he said, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to her or himself. He pulled harder this time, using his legs, his core, everything he had. Still nothing. Evelyn's weight was starting to sag against him. Her struggles were becoming weaker. Lucas knew what that meant. She was losing consciousness, her body shutting down non-essential functions to preserve oxygen for the brain, for the heart, for the last desperate moments before everything stopped. Around them, the restaurant had descended into chaos. A woman was crying. The manager had appeared from somewhere, his face ashen, stammering something about liability. Two waiters stood paralyzed, watching, everyone watching, no one helping. Lucas blocked them all out. In this moment, the entire world had contracted to the woman in his arms, to the physics of force and angle, to the desperate calculation of what he could do in the seconds that remained. He thought of Maya, of the time she'd aspirated fluid during a particularly bad respiratory episode, how the doctor had explained afterward that the difference between life and death had been measured in seconds, in the speed of intervention, in the willingness to act when hesitation felt safer. He thought of his ex-wife, how she'd left because she couldn't handle the stress, couldn't handle the hospital visits and the medical bills and the constant fear. How she'd said, "You're too calm about all this, Lucas. It's not normal." Maybe it wasn't normal. Maybe most people weren't wired to stay calm when everything was falling apart. But Maya had needed someone who could, and now this stranger needed the same thing. Lucas adjusted his stance one more time, bent his knees slightly for better mechanical advantage, and pulled with every ounce of strength he possessed. He felt it the instant before it happened, a subtle shift, a give. And then suddenly, Evelyn lurched forward, her body convulsing. Something small and dark flew from her mouth and skittered across the white tablecloth. A piece of steak, barely an inch across. Such a small thing to steal a life. Evelyn collapsed forward, catching herself on the table, coughing violently. Each cough was the most beautiful sound Lucas had ever heard, because each cough meant air, meant breath, meant life continuing. The restaurant erupted in applause. People were standing, clapping, some crying. The manager was suddenly at Lucas's elbow. His earlier panic transformed into effusive gratitude. "Sir, that was incredible. You saved her life. What's your name? Can we—" But Lucas wasn't listening. He was watching Evelyn, making sure she was actually okay, looking for the signs of secondary complications he'd learned about: aspiration pneumonia, damaged airways, shock. She was still coughing, but the color was returning to her face. Her hands were shaking as they gripped the table, but she was breathing. She was alive. Their eyes met. Lucas saw something in her face that he recognized, though he couldn't quite name it. Not just gratitude, though that was there too, but something deeper. Shock, maybe. Or the strange intimacy that comes from having a complete stranger hold your life in their hands and choose not to let go. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice raw. "Thank you. You're okay," Lucas said simply. That's what matters. The paramedics were arriving, their radios crackling, efficient voices cutting through the emotional chaos. Lucas stepped back, giving them room to work. The manager was still talking at him, something about comping his meal, about getting his information, about needing to thank him properly. Lucas glanced at his watch, a cheap digital thing that Maya had picked out for his last birthday, because it had a backlight she thought was cool. It was 8:47 p.m. Mrs. Chen would have Maya in bed by 9. He'd promised to be home by 9:30 to check on her, to make sure her breathing was steady, to be there when she woke up from the nightmares she sometimes had after her hospital stays. "I need to go," Lucas said. The manager blinked. "What?" "No, sir, please. We haven't even— I really need to go." Lucas looked past him to where Evelyn sat, now surrounded by paramedics checking her vitals, asking her questions, shining lights in her eyes. She was looking at him over their shoulders, her expression impossible to read. Lucas raised his hand in a small wave. Not goodbye exactly. More like acknowledgement. "I see you. You're okay now. That's enough." Then he turned and walked toward the door, leaving his half-finished meal on the table, leaving the applause behind, leaving the manager stammering after him with questions he had no intention of answering. Outside, the Seattle night had turned cold. Lucas pulled his jacket tighter and started walking toward the bus stop, his hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. His phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Chen. "Maya's sleeping peacefully. Don't rush." He smiled, typing back a quick thanks, and kept walking. Behind him, inside Le Bernardin, Evelyn Hart sat on a chair the paramedics had brought, a blanket around her shoulders, answering questions about her medical history. But part of her mind was still with the man who'd walked away, trying to understand what had just happened. Someone had saved her life and hadn't wanted anything in return. Hadn't wanted recognition, or money, or even her name. In Evelyn's world, a world of transactions and networking and carefully calculated exchanges, such a thing seemed almost impossible. "Ma'am," the paramedic said. "Ma'am, we'd like to take you to the hospital for observation." Evelyn nodded absently. "The man who helped me," she said. "Did anyone get his name?" The paramedic glanced at his partner, then at the hovering manager. I don't think so, ma'am." The manager wrung his hands. "He left before I could get his information. I'm so sorry, Miss Hart. If I'd known who you were, I would have—" "You knew someone was choking," Evelyn said quietly. "That should have been enough." She let them lead her toward the ambulance, but she couldn't stop thinking about the stranger's eyes, tired but calm, the eyes of someone who'd seen emergencies before and learned not to panic, the way he'd moved with such certainty, such practiced efficiency. The way he'd said, "You're okay," like it was a fact, not a hope. And the way he'd walked away, like saving someone's life was just something you did on a Tuesday night before going home. The restaurant slowly returned to its normal rhythm. The other diners, their excitement fading, went back to their meals with new stories to tell at cocktail parties. The staff cleaned up table 17, removed the wine glass, found the small piece of steak, and discreetly disposed of it. But something had shifted. In the space of 90 seconds, two lives had intersected in the most fundamental way possible, and neither would be quite the same. Evelyn didn't know it yet, but she would spend the next 3 days thinking about nothing but finding the man who'd saved her. Lucas didn't know it yet, but his act of instinctive kindness would ripple outward in ways that would change not just his life, but the lives of thousands of people he'd never meet. But that was still to come. For now, there was only this: a woman breathing when she shouldn't be, a man riding a bus home to his daughter, and the strange, unspoken understanding that sometimes the most important moments of our lives happen in the spaces between heartbeats, in the choices we make when there's no time to think, only time to act. The rain started again as Lucas's bus pulled away from the curb, soft drops streaking the windows. He watched the city lights blur past and thought about calling Maya's doctor in the morning to schedule her next checkup. He thought about whether he'd need to pick up an extra shift this week to cover the meal he'd just walked away from. He didn't think about the woman he'd saved. He'd done what anyone should do, what he hoped someone would do for Maya if she ever needed it. There was nothing more to think about. But Evelyn, strapped to a gurney in the back of an ambulance, her throat still aching, her mind still reeling, couldn't think about anything else. "We're taking you to Swedish Medical Center," the paramedic said. "Is there anyone we should call? Family? Friends?" Evelyn shook her head. There were people, of course. Her assistant, her board members, her mother. But none of them felt right for this moment. None of them would understand what she was feeling, this strange mix of gratitude and confusion and something else she couldn't quite name. Someone had given her life back without asking for anything. In her world, that didn't happen. Everything had a price. Every favor had a string attached. Every gesture had an angle. But that man, whoever he was, had simply acted. And then he'd left. Evelyn closed her eyes, feeling the ambulance navigate the wet streets, and made a decision. She would find him. Not to repay him, she sensed somehow that he wouldn't want that, but to understand. To know who walks through the world with that kind of quiet readiness, that kind of selfless competence. She had resources. She had connections. She had built an empire on her ability to solve problems that seemed impossible. How hard could it be to find one man in Seattle? As it turned out, harder than she could have imagined. But that's a story for tomorrow, for the morning headlines that would turn a quiet act of heroism into a citywide mystery, for the moment when Evelyn Hart would discover that some questions don't have easy answers and some people don't want to be found. Tonight, There was only the rain and the darkness, and two people who'd shared something profound without even knowing each other's names. The city continued its endless rhythm, millions of lives intersecting and diverging, touching and separating, each person carrying their own weight, their own struggles, their own small moments of grace. Somewhere in the Queen Anne neighborhood, Lucas Reed quietly opened his apartment door, slipped off his shoes, and padded down the hallway to his daughter's room. Maya was sleeping peacefully, her breathing steady and clear, one arm wrapped around the stuffed elephant she'd had since she was 3. Lucas stood in the doorway for a long moment, just watching her breathe, feeling the familiar swell of love and fear and desperate hope that defined his days. She was okay. For now, she was okay. That was all he could ask for. He didn't know that across the city, in a hospital bed, a woman he'd never properly met was thinking about him. Didn't know that his face would be on the news by morning, sketched from the manager's description and security footage. Didn't know that he'd become, for a brief moment, the city's mystery hero. All he knew was that Maya was breathing, and he was home, and tomorrow he'd wake up and do it all again. The warehouse shift, the medical appointments, the careful budgeting, the constant vigilance. That was his life. That was enough. Lucas closed Maya's door softly and headed to his own room, his body finally acknowledging its exhaustion. He'd sleep for 5 hours if he was lucky, then wake up and make Maya's breakfast, get her ready for school, check her medications, all the rhythms he knew by heart. The woman in the restaurant, the applause, the drama of it all. It was already fading from his mind, just another moment in a life full of moments where he'd had to act fast and think later. He fell asleep within minutes, dreamless and deep. But Evelyn, in her hospital bed, stared at the ceiling for hours, unable to shake the image of a stranger's calm eyes, the feeling of being pulled back from the edge by someone who'd asked for nothing in return. The nurses came and went, checking her vitals, asking if she needed anything. She didn't. Everything she needed, air, life, tomorrow, had already been given to her by a man whose name she didn't know. Finally, near midnight, she pulled out her phone. Her assistant had left 17 messages. Her mother had called 9 times. There were emails from board members, from friends who'd somehow already heard, from a reporter who'd gotten her private number. Evelyn ignored all of them. Instead, she opened a new note and began to type, trying to capture the evening before the details faded, trying to hold on to the memory of what it felt like to have your life depend on a stranger's competence, a stranger's courage, a stranger's willingness to step forward when everyone else stood back. She wrote until her hands hurt, until her eyes finally grew heavy, until the words began to blur together. And when she finally slept, she dreamed of falling and of strong arms catching her, and of a quiet voice saying, "You're okay. That's what matters." Outside both their windows, Seattle slept and woke, the rain falling and stopping and falling again, the city breathing its endless rhythm, unaware that something had shifted, that 2 lives had collided and diverged, leaving both of them forever changed. The story had only just begun. The morning light came too early for Lucas, filtering through the thin curtains of his bedroom with an insistence that felt almost personal. His alarm hadn't gone off yet, but his body had learned years ago that sleep was a luxury measured in stolen minutes rather than full nights. He lay still for a moment, listening to the familiar sounds of the building waking up around him. Mrs. Chen's television murmuring through the wall, someone's footsteps on the floor above, the distant hiss of traffic already building on the street below. Maya would be awake soon. She always woke at 6:47, never 6:45 or 6:50, but exactly 6:47, as if her body contained some precise internal clock that Lucas had never quite understood. He had 17 minutes to shower, dress, and start breakfast before she padded into the kitchen, asking her usual morning question, "Dad, what are we grateful for today?" It was a ritual they'd started after one of her longer hospital stays, when a child psychologist had suggested finding daily moments of positivity to combat the anxiety that came with chronic illness. Lucas had expected it to last maybe a week before Maya got bored with it, but 2 years later she still asked every single morning, still waited with serious attention for his answer. He pushed himself out of bed, his body protesting in small ways. The ache in his lower back from yesterday's shift, the stiffness in his shoulders from lifting boxes that probably exceeded the warehouse's official weight limits, but that everyone lifted anyway because falling behind meant staying late, and staying late meant less time with Maya. The shower was quick and lukewarm. The building's water heater had been scheduled for repair for 3 months now, but it woke him up enough to face the day. As he toweled off, he caught a glimpse of himself in the foggy mirror. 36 years old, though he looked older on bad days. His father's eyes, his mother's stubborn jawline, and the kind of tiredness that went deeper than sleep could fix. He dressed in the same jeans from last night. They were clean enough for another day, and a different button-down shirt, this one with a small stain near the pocket that he'd never quite managed to get out. The warehouse didn't have a dress code beyond wear closed-toe shoes and don't show up drunk. But Lucas liked to maintain some standards, some small dignity in the daily grind. When he walked into the kitchen, Maya was already there, sitting at their small table with her current favorite book, something about dragons and friendship that she'd made him read aloud 3 times already. She looked up when he entered, and her face split into the kind of smile that made every hardship, every sacrifice, every sleepless night worth it. "Morning, Dad," she said, her voice still slightly raspy. It was always worse in the mornings, her lungs needing time to wake up fully, to remember how to work properly. "Morning, sweetheart," Lucas replied, moving to the refrigerator. "How are you feeling today?" "Good," Maya said, which could mean anything from actually good to just okay to I don't want you to worry. Lucas had learned to read the subtle signs, the slight wheeze that meant her inhaler would be needed soon, the particular way she held her shoulders when her chest felt tight. This morning, though, she seemed genuinely okay. Her color was good, her breathing steady. "What are we grateful for today?" she asked, right on schedule. Lucas pulled eggs from the refrigerator, considering. Usually he went for simple things. Sunny weather, Mrs. Chen's kindness, Maya's good days. But this morning, for reasons he couldn't quite articulate, something different came to mind. "I'm grateful," he said slowly, cracking eggs into a bowl, "that when people need help, there are others willing to give it." Maya tilted her head, studying him with the unnerving perceptiveness of children who'd spent too much time around adults dealing with serious things. "Did you help someone, Dad?" Lucas whisked the eggs, adding a splash of milk. "Yeah, last night at dinner someone needed help and I was there." "What kind of help?" "Medical help," Lucas said, which was true enough. "Someone was choking and I did the Heimlich maneuver." Maya's eyes went wide. "Like the poster at school. Did it work? Did you save them?" "It worked," Lucas confirmed, pouring the eggs into the heated pan. "They're okay now." "Wow," Maya breathed, and in her voice Lucas heard the kind of uncomplicated pride that made his chest tighten. "You're a hero, Dad." "I'm not a hero, sweetheart. I just did what anyone should do." "But not everyone does," Maya said with the simple wisdom of someone who'd seen plenty of people look away from hard things, from sick children, from situations that made them uncomfortable. "That's what makes it special." Lucas plated the scrambled eggs, added toast, and set breakfast in front of his daughter. "Eat up. You've got school in 45 minutes. They ate in comfortable silence, broken only by Maya's occasional observations about her book or questions about his day. Lucas checked his phone while she talked. No new messages from work, which was good. No calls from Maya's school, also good. Just a missed call from his mother that he'd return later when he had more energy for her well-meaning but exhausting advice about how he should be dating, should be building a life beyond just Maya and work. He was clearing the breakfast plates when Maya suddenly pointed at the small TV in the corner of the kitchen. "Dad, can I watch morning cartoons?" 10 minutes, Lucas said, then teeth brushing. Maya grabbed the remote and flicked on the local news. She'd been going through a phase of thinking news was more grown-up than cartoons, though Lucas suspected she'd be back to animated shows within a week. The anchor's voice filled the kitchen, cheerful and precise. "Good morning, Seattle. Our top story this morning, a dramatic rescue at a downtown restaurant last night, has the city talking. Tech CEO Evelyn Hart was saved from choking by a mysterious Good Samaritan who left the scene before anyone could get his name." Lucas froze, a plate halfway to the sink. The screen cut to footage from outside Le Bernardin, emergency vehicles with flashing lights, and then to what looked like security camera images, grainy but unmistakably showing Lucas performing the Heimlich maneuver. The man, described as being in his mid-30s with dark hair, Left immediately after saving Hart's life. The anchor continued. Restaurant staff say he refused to give his name or accept any thanks. Hart, the founder and CEO of Hart Technologies, was treated at Swedish Medical Center and released early this morning. She's offering a reward for information leading to the identity of her rescuer. The screen showed a photo of Evelyn Hart, professional, polished, the kind of headshot that appeared in Forbes and Fortune. Even in the picture, Lucas could see the intelligence in her eyes, the confidence of someone who was used to being the most capable person in any room. Dad! Maya was staring at the screen, then at him, her mouth open. Dad, that's you! You're on TV! It's nothing, Lucas said quickly, reaching for the remote. But Maya was faster, scooting her chair back and standing on it to get a better view of the screen. They're looking for you! Dad, you have to call them. There's a reward. The anchor was still talking. Anyone with information is asked to contact Hart Technologies. The company is also encouraging the mystery rescuer to come forward so they can properly thank him for his quick thinking and bravery. Lucas turned off the TV. The sudden silence felt heavy. Dad, Maya started. We need to brush teeth, Lucas said firmly. You'll be late for school. But Dad, they want to thank you. And there's a reward that could help with... She stopped herself, but Lucas knew what she'd been about to say. With medical bills, with rent, with all the things they never quite had enough money for, but that she'd learned not to mention because mentioning them made her father's face do that thing where he looked tired and sad at the same time. Lucas knelt down so he was eye level with his daughter. Maya, listen to me. I helped someone because they needed help. That's all. I don't need a reward for doing the right thing. But no buts. Now go brush your teeth, please. Maya's face fell, but she obeyed, sliding off her chair and heading to the bathroom. Lucas could hear the water running, the mechanical buzz of her electric toothbrush, and underneath it, the sound of his own heart beating too fast. He looked at his phone. Already there were 3 missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize. As he watched, another call came in. He let it go to voicemail. This was going to be a problem. By the time he dropped Maya off at school, watching until she was safely through the doors, waiting for her to turn and wave like she always did, Lucas had received 14 more calls and a text from his warehouse supervisor asking if the guy on the news was him. Lucas texted back a simple yes and, please don't give out my info to anyone, then turned his phone to silent. He couldn't afford to miss work, couldn't afford the attention, couldn't afford any of this. The bus ride downtown felt longer than usual, every passenger a potential threat, every glance possibly one of recognition. But no one seemed to notice him. The security footage had been grainy enough, the sketch based on the manager's description generic enough, that Lucas could still blend into the morning commuters heading to their jobs. The warehouse was a massive concrete building near the waterfront that processed inventory for 3 different retail chains. Lucas had worked there for 4 years, long enough to know the rhythms of the place, to understand which supervisors would look the other way if you needed to take a call about your sick kid, and which ones would write you up for being 30 seconds late from break. His supervisor, Marcus, was waiting near the time clock. Read, Marcus said, his expression unreadable. My office. Now. Lucas's stomach dropped. He followed Marcus through the warehouse floor, past pallets of boxed goods, and the familiar sound of forklifts beeping their backup warnings, into the small glass-walled office that overlooked the operation. Marcus closed the door and gestured to a chair. Sit. Lucas sat, his mind already calculating how long his savings would last if he got fired, how he'd explain to Maya that they might need to move to a cheaper apartment, how... That was you on the news this morning, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Lucas admitted, but I don't want any... You saved Evelyn Hart's life. Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying Lucas with an expression that might have been respect or might have been something else entirely. Do you have any idea who she is? I know she's a CEO, Lucas said carefully. I didn't know that when I helped her. I just saw someone choking and I acted. She's not just a CEO. She's one of the richest women in Seattle. Forbes did a whole profile on her last year. Hart Technologies. They do AI integration for healthcare systems. Big contracts. Billions of dollars. Marcus paused. and she's offering a reward for finding you. I don't want a reward. Why the hell not? The question came out sharp, almost accusatory. Reed, I've seen your file. I know about your daughter, about the medical bills. You pick up every overtime shift you can get. You're living paycheck to paycheck, and you're telling me you don't want someone to give you money for saving their life? Lucas met his supervisor's eyes steadily. I did what anyone should have done. I don't deserve money for that. Jesus Christ, Marcus muttered, running a hand over his face. You're serious? I am. They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the warehouse filtering through the office walls. Finally, Marcus sighed. Look, Reed, I respect that, I do. But I need you to understand something. The news vans are going to figure out who you are eventually. Someone's going to recognize you, or talk, or put two and two together, and when they do, this place is going to be crawling with reporters. Lucas hadn't thought about that. I'm sorry, I'll resign if— Don't be an idiot, Marcus interrupted. I'm not firing you. Hell, having a hero on the payroll is probably good PR. But I need to know, are you planning to come forward to claim this reward? No, Lucas said immediately. I just want to do my job and go home to my daughter. Marcus studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, here's what's going to happen. You work today like normal. If anyone asks, I don't confirm or deny anything. But Reed— He leaned forward. You should think about this. Really think about it. Pride is one thing, but your daughter's health is another. Sometimes accepting help isn't the same as taking advantage. Lucas stood up. Is there anything else? No, get to work. That's suggestive. The rest of the day passed in a blur of routine tasks that Lucas could do half asleep, sorting inventory, scanning barcodes, loading pallets. But his mind was elsewhere, replaying Marcus's words, thinking about the calls still coming to his silent phone, wondering what Evelyn Hart wanted beyond just saying thank you. During his lunch break, sitting in his car, to avoid the other workers who'd seen the news and had questions, Lucas finally checked his voicemail. 17 new messages. Most were from reporters. 3 were from numbers claiming to be from Hart Technologies. 1 was from his mother, who'd seen the news and was both proud and confused about why he was hiding. He deleted them all except his mother's. He'd call her back tonight, try to explain something he didn't fully understand himself. The last message was different. It had come in just 20 minutes ago, from a number he didn't recognize, but the voice made him sit up straighter. Mr. Reed, I'm hoping this is the right Lucas Reed, the one who works at the warehouse on Harbor Avenue. My name is Jennifer Cho, and I'm the executive assistant to Evelyn Hart. Ms. Hart would very much like to speak with you, not about a reward or publicity, but simply to thank you in person. She understands you value your privacy, and she promises this would be completely confidential. No press, no cameras, no obligations, just a conversation. If you're willing, please call me back at this number. And Mr. Reed, thank you for everything you did. The message ended. Lucas stared at his phone, his thumb hovering over the delete button. Just a conversation, no obligations. He could refuse. He could delete the message, block the number, and go back to his life. Eventually, the news cycle would move on. Eventually, people would forget. He'd just be Lucas Reed again, warehouse worker, single father, nobody special. But something in Jennifer Cho's voice had been genuine. Not pushy, not demanding, just honest. And Evelyn Hart had almost died in his arms. Maybe she deserved closure, deserved to say thank you without cameras and reporters turning it into a spectacle. Before he could overthink it, Lucas pressed the callback button. Jennifer Cho answered on the second ring. Mr. Reed? How did you find me? Lucas asked, skipping pleasantries. The restaurant manager remembered your meal order. We cross-referenced that with credit card receipts, found your name, and did some basic research. I apologize if that feels invasive, but Ms. Hart was quite insistent on finding you. I don't want publicity, Lucas said firmly. I don't want money. I just want to be left alone. I understand, Jennifer said, and she sounded like she meant it. Ms. Hart feels the same way, actually. She's had reporters camped outside her building all morning. She hates it, but she would really appreciate 10 minutes of your time, just to talk. No strings attached. Lucas closed his eyes, knowing he was about to make a decision that might complicate everything. When? Would tonight work? 7 p.m.? There's a small cafe near Green Lake that's quiet this time of year. The owner is a friend and would close early for privacy. Lucas thought about Maya, about his promise to be home by 8:30. I can do 7, but I need to be done by 8. Understood. I'll text you the address. And Mr. Reed, thank you for calling back. This means a lot to her. The call ended before Lucas could change his mind. He spent the rest of his shift in a fog of second guessing, but when the clock hit 4:30 and his shift ended, he didn't back out. He drove home, picked up Maya from after-school care, helped her with homework, made dinner, and tried to act normal even though his hands shook slightly while chopping vegetables. "You're quiet tonight, Dad," Maya observed, her inhaler sitting on the table next to her math worksheet. She'd needed it twice today, which meant her lungs were having a rough week. "Just thinking about work," Lucas said, which was technically true. "Are people asking about you saving that lady?" "Some people," Lucas admitted. Maya looked at him seriously, her pencil paused over a long division problem. "You don't like being famous." "I'm not famous, sweetheart. I just did one thing that happened to be on the news." "But you could be," Maya said. "You could tell everyone your name, and then maybe you'd get to be on TV and everything." "Would you want that?" Lucas asked, genuinely curious. "Would you want everyone knowing your dad, having cameras around?" Maya considered this with the same serious concentration she gave her math problems. "No," she finally said. "I like how we are. Just us." Lucas felt something in his chest loosen slightly. "Yeah, me too." At 6:30, Mrs. Chen came over to stay with Maya. Lucas had told her he had an appointment, nothing more, and she'd asked no questions. Mrs. Chen had been a godsend since his ex-wife left, reliable, kind, and thoroughly uninterested in gossip. The cafe was exactly as Jennifer had described, small, warm, tucked between a bookstore and a yoga studio. The windows were already dark, a closed sign on the door, but when Lucas tried the handle, it opened. Inside, the space was intimate, maybe 10 tables, soft lighting that came from Edison bulbs hanging from exposed pipes. And sitting at a table in the back, looking remarkably different from her professional headshot, was Evelyn Hart. She stood when he entered, and Lucas noticed she moved carefully, one hand briefly touching her throat as if it still hurt. She was dressed simply, jeans, a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Without the corporate polish, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "Mr. Reed," she said, her voice still slightly hoarse. "Thank you for coming." "You for—" "Just Lucas," he replied, approaching the table but not sitting yet. "And I can't stay long." "I understand. Please, sit." She gestured to the chair across from her. "Would you like coffee? The owner left some made." "I'm fine, thank you." They sat in awkward silence for a moment. Lucas noticed Evelyn was turning a coffee cup in her hands, around and around, like she was trying to figure out what to say. "I wanted to thank you," she finally began. "Properly, without cameras or crowds or any of the circus that's been following me around since last night." "You already thanked me," Lucas said. "At the restaurant." "I whispered 2 words while I was barely conscious," Evelyn countered. "That doesn't count." She paused. "The doctors told me I was probably less than a minute from losing consciousness completely. Maybe 2 minutes from brain damage. You saved my life, Lucas. That deserves more than 2 whispered words." Lucas shifted uncomfortably. "Anyone would have done the same, but they didn't." Her voice carried an edge now, not angry but firm. "There were 47 people in that restaurant. I've counted. I've watched the security footage more times than I should admit. 47 people, and 46 of them just stood there. You were the only one who acted." "I have a daughter with medical issues," Lucas said, the words coming out before he'd really thought about them. "I've learned to recognize emergencies and act fast. That's all." Evelyn's expression softened. "How old is your daughter?" 8. She has a rare autoimmune condition that affects her respiratory system." "That must be terrifying." "Every day," Lucas admitted, then wondered why he was telling this stranger about his life. But something about the quiet cafe, about Evelyn's genuine interest, made it feel safe to talk. "But you learn to live with the fear. You learn to function despite it." "Is she okay? Your daughter?" "She's having a rough week, but she's strong." Evelyn nodded slowly, and Lucas saw something in her face, understanding, maybe, or recognition of what it meant to care that deeply about someone else's well-being. "My assistant found you," she said after a moment. "Obviously, I hope that wasn't too invasive." "It was efficient," Lucas said neutrally. A ghost of a smile crossed Evelyn's face. "That's very diplomatic. The truth is, I needed to find you. Not just to say thank you, but to understand." "Understand what?" "Why you left." Evelyn leaned forward slightly. "Everyone else wanted something from me last night. The restaurant manager wanted to be a hero by association. The other diners wanted to tell their friends they were there. Even the paramedics wanted me to remember them, to maybe put in a good word with the hospital board. But you just left. Like saving someone's life was just an item on your to-do list. Buy groceries, save CEO, go home." Lucas almost smiled. "It wasn't quite that casual." "Well, then help me understand. Because in my world, everything is a transaction. Everything has value. Everything is leverage. And you walked away from all of it." "I have a daughter waiting for me at home," Lucas said simply. "That's more valuable than anything else." Evelyn sat back, studying him with an intensity that made Lucas want to look away. "You really mean that?" "Of course I do." "You have no idea how rare that is," Evelyn said quietly. "True selflessness. I've been in boardrooms with billionaires who'd sell their grandmother for a good quarterly report. I've worked with people who measure every interaction by what they can gain from it. And you?" She shook her head, almost laughing. "You saved my life, and your first thought was, I need to get home to my daughter." What was I supposed to think? Most people would have thought about the reward, about the publicity, about how this could change their life. Lucas checked his watch. 7:23. He needed to leave soon. "Look, Ms. Hart, Evelyn, please." "Evelyn, I appreciate you wanting to say thank you, but I really did just do what anyone should do. I don't need thanks, I don't need money, and I definitely don't need whatever else you might be thinking about offering." "What if I'm not offering anything?" "Then why am I here?" Evelyn paused, seeming to consider her words carefully. "Because I needed to see you again, to confirm that you were real, that someone like you actually exists, and because—" She stopped, looking almost embarrassed. "This is going to sound strange. Try me. I feel like I owe you something. Not money or recognition, but understanding, connection. I don't know the right word." She ran a hand through her hair, dislodging the ponytail. "You held my life in your hands, literally, and then you walked away before I even knew your name. That's been eating at me. I'm not used to unfinished business." Lucas understood that more than he wanted to admit. Sometimes things don't need to be finished. Sometimes they just are what they are. Is that what this is? Just a random moment that happened and now it's over? Isn't it? Evelyn shook her head slowly. "I don't think so. I think—" She paused, choosing words. "I think you changed something for me last night. The way you moved, the way you stayed calm while I was panicking, the way you said, 'You're okay,' like you could make it true just by believing it. I've been thinking about that, about how different my world would be if more people approached problems like you did, with competence instead of panic, with action instead of paralysis." Lucas stood up. "I really need to go. My daughter—" "Wait." Evelyn stood too. "Please, just one more minute." He waited, hand on the back of his chair. "I'm not going to offer you money," Evelyn said. "I can tell that would insult you, but I want to do something, not as payment, but as, I don't know, paying it forward? You saved one life. Let me help you save your daughter's quality of life." "My daughter is fine," Lucas said, the words coming out harsher than he intended. "Is she?" Evelyn's voice was gentle. "Because you mentioned medical bills to someone, I'm guessing. And you work at a warehouse, and you're worried about being late getting home. And you look like you haven't slept properly in years. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to help. I don't need charity. It's not charity, it's gratitude." Evelyn pulled a business card from her pocket. "Heart Technologies has a program for families dealing with chronic illness, flexible work schedules, better health insurance, resources for parents who are also caregivers. I didn't start it, but I could make sure you're eligible." Lucas didn't take the card. "I don't work in tech." "We have warehouses too. distribution centers, and we're always looking for people who can think clearly in emergencies, who can lead without panicking. That's more valuable than coding skills. This feels like payment. Then consider it me being selfish, Evelyn said, pressing the card into his hand. Because I can't stop thinking about how close I came to dying, and how my company would have gone on without me, and how there are probably thousands of people like you out there, competent, dedicated, just trying to get by. Who deserve better than barely scraping by? Let me do this one thing. For you, for your daughter, for my own peace of mind. Lucas looked down at the card. It was simple, elegant. Evelyn Hart, CEO, and a phone number. No press, he said finally. No press. No public thank yous or ceremonies or any of that. None of it. This is just between us. Lucas pocketed the card, though he wasn't sure he'd ever use it. I need to go. Of course. Evelyn walked him to the door. Lucas, thank you, again, for everything. He nodded, then stepped out into the cool evening air. Behind him, he heard the cafe door lock, heard Evelyn's footsteps moving away inside. The bus ride home felt surreal, like he'd just stepped out of someone else's life and back into his own. He checked his phone, 8:09. He'd be home before 8:30. Mrs. Chen would be watching her Korean dramas while Maya hopefully slept. But when he walked into his apartment, he found Maya still awake, sitting at the kitchen table with Mrs. Chen, both of them looking at his laptop screen. Dad! Maya jumped up. Mrs. Chen helped me look you up online. There are like 50 articles about you. Lucas's heart sank. He looked at Mrs. Chen, who had the grace to appear apologetic. She was very insistent, Mrs. Chen said, and I thought maybe it was better she hear it from articles than from kids at school tomorrow. Lucas moved to the laptop, looking at the screen. There he was, frozen in grainy security footage, his arms around Evelyn Hart. The headline read, Mystery Hero Saves Tech CEO. Who is he? Dad, they're calling you a hero, Maya said, her eyes shining. And look, there are people on Twitter trying to guess who you are and everything. It's time for bed, Lucas said, closing the laptop more firmly than necessary. But Dad, bed, Maya, now. Something in his tone made Maya's excitement fade. She nodded, hugged Mrs. Chen goodnight, and trudged toward her room. Lucas followed her, helping her with her nighttime medications, checking her breathing, tucking her in like he did every night. Are you mad? Maya asked quietly. No, sweetheart. I'm just tired. But you did a good thing. Why don't you want people to know? Lucas sat on the edge of her bed, trying to find words she'd understand. Sometimes good things are better when they're quiet, when they're just between the people involved. All this attention, it changes things. It makes something simple into something complicated. But the lady you saved wants to thank you. That's good, right? I already talked to her tonight. She thanked me. Maya's eyes widened. You met her? What was she like? Nice. Normal. Just a person who had a bad moment. Did she give you a reward? She offered me a job. Maya sat up, wincing slightly at the movement. Her chest must be tight tonight. A job? Dad, that's amazing. Is it better than the warehouse? Does it have better insurance for my treatments? And there it was, the thing Lucas had been trying to avoid thinking about. His 8-year-old daughter understood their financial situation well enough to ask about insurance. I don't know yet, sweetheart. I need to think about it. But you should take it, right? If it's better? Maybe. We'll see. Lucas kissed her forehead. Sleep now. We'll talk more tomorrow. He left her room and found Mrs. Chen waiting by the door, her purse already on her shoulder. I'm sorry about the laptop, she said. But Lucas, that child deserves to be proud of her father. Let her have this. It's complicated, Mrs. Chen. It doesn't have to be. She patted his arm. Sometimes pride gets in the way of wisdom. Think about the job offer. After she left, Lucas stood in his quiet apartment, the weight of the day settling on his shoulders like physical pressure. He pulled out Evelyn's business card, studied the simple elegance of it, the confidence in those few words. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Evelyn? Jennifer gave me your number. I hope that's okay. I meant what I said tonight. If you're interested in learning more about the position, call anytime. No pressure. E. Lucas put the phone down without responding. He moved through his nightly routine on autopilot, cleaning the kitchen, checking that all the doors were locked, setting up the coffee maker for tomorrow morning. But his mind was elsewhere, replaying the conversation in the cafe, the look in Evelyn's eyes when she'd talked about gratitude and selflessness. He thought about Maya asking about insurance, about the inhaler that cost $200 every month, even with his current coverage, about the specialist appointments they'd had to skip because the copay was too high. He thought about Marcus's words. Sometimes accepting help isn't the same as taking advantage. At midnight, lying in bed and staring at the ceiling, Lucas finally admitted the truth to himself. He was scared of change, scared of owing anyone anything, scared that accepting help would somehow diminish what he'd done or who he was. But he was more scared of failing Maya, of watching her struggle because his pride got in the way of her health. His phone sat on the nightstand, Evelyn's text still unanswered. Tomorrow, he told himself. Tomorrow he'd think about it clearly. Tomorrow he'd figure out what to do. But tomorrow came with its own complications, its own impossible choices, and Lucas Reed was about to discover that sometimes the hardest thing about being a hero isn't the moment of action. It's everything that comes after. Morning arrived with Maya's coughing, the kind that woke Lucas from uneasy sleep with his heart already racing. He was in her room before he was fully conscious, hand on her back, counting the seconds between coughs, listening to the quality of each one with ears trained by years of crisis management. "Dad?" she wheezed, trying to catch her breath between spasms. Can't breathe right." Lucas was already reaching for her nebulizer, the machine they'd used so many times he could assemble it in the dark. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, medication vial, saline, mask adjusted to fit her small face. The familiar hiss of the machine filled the room as Maya breathed in the medicated mist, each inhale a small victory, each exhale a reminder of how fragile everything was. "Slow breaths, sweetheart," Lucas murmured, one hand on her shoulder, the other checking her pulse on his watch. Too fast. Her heart was working overtime, compensating for lungs that weren't cooperating. "You're okay. Just breathe with me." They sat together in the pre-dawn darkness, the nebulizer's rhythmic sound the only noise in the apartment. Lucas watched the sky lighten beyond Maya's window and made calculations he'd made 100 times before. Her breathing was settling, but not enough. This meant a call to her pulmonologist, possibly an emergency appointment, definitely missing work. Another unpaid day off, another hit to the paycheck that was already stretched too thin. By the time the treatment ended 20 minutes later, Maya's breathing had improved enough that the panic receded, leaving only the familiar exhaustion. She leaned against Lucas, her small body trembling slightly. "Sorry, Dad," she whispered. "Never apologize for this," Lucas said firmly. "Never. This isn't your fault. But you have to miss work now. You're more important than work. Always." He got her settled back in bed, propped up on pillows the way the doctor had recommended, and stepped into the hallway to make the calls he dreaded. First to her pulmonologist's office, where he left a message with the answering service about the early morning episode, then to the warehouse, where he explained the situation to the night supervisor who'd pass it on to Marcus. "No problem, Reed," the supervisor said, but Lucas heard the subtle edge in his voice. Everyone was understanding about Maya's condition until it affected the schedule too many times. "Hope she feels better." Lucas ended the call and leaned against the wall, pressing the heels of his hands against his eyes. The pressure helped somehow, gave him something physical to focus on besides the weight of everything else. His phone was still in his hand when it buzzed with a text. Jennifer Cho, Evelyn's assistant. "Good morning, Lucas. Ms. Hart wanted me to reach out and see if you'd had time to consider her offer. No pressure, but if you're interested, we could arrange a tour of our facilities this week. Our warehouse positions come with full medical benefits that begin immediately, not after a probationary period. Jennifer." Lucas stared at the message for a long moment. The timing felt almost cosmic, like the universe was making the decision for him. He typed back before he could overthink it. "My daughter had a medical episode this morning. Would it be possible to tour later this week when I know she's stable?" The response came within 60 seconds. "Of course. I hope she's okay. Just let me know when works for you. We're flexible." We're flexible. Two words that Lucas rarely heard in his current job. 2 words that represented a luxury he couldn't usually afford. He pocketed his phone and went to check on Maya, who'd fallen back asleep, her breathing still audible but steadier now. The morning crawled by in the particular way that emergency days did, slow and vigilant, punctuated by periodic checks of Maya's breathing, her temperature, her color. By noon, the on-call pulmonologist had returned his message and recommended they come in for an evaluation, just to be safe. Lucas bundled Maya into warm clothes, called for a rideshare he couldn't really afford, and made the familiar journey to Children's Hospital. The pediatric pulmonology wing was decorated with cheerful murals that didn't quite mask the underlying anxiety that permeated every children's hospital. Lucas knew every receptionist by name, recognized other parents in the waiting room, the ones whose children also had chronic conditions, who'd learned to smile at each other in solidarity even as they silently hoped their kids wouldn't end up as sick as the others. "Lucas, Reed, and Maya," he told the receptionist, who smiled with genuine warmth. "Hey, Maya," she said, leaning over the counter. "I like your shirt. Is that the new character from that dragon show?" Maya managed a small smile. "Yeah, her name is Ember." "Very cool. They'll call you back in just a few minutes." They sat in chairs that Lucas had sat in dozens of times, and he pulled out the tablet they'd borrowed from Maya's school so she could keep up with homework during medical appointments. But instead of opening her math program, Maya looked at him seriously. "Dad, are you going to take the new job?" Lucas glanced around, making sure no one was listening. "I'm thinking about it." "You should take it," Maya said with the certainty only 8-year-olds could muster. "Better insurance means I won't feel so bad when I get sick." "Maya, I know you worry about money," she continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I hear you sometimes on the phone with the hospital billing people. I know my medicine is expensive. I know I'm expensive." Lucas felt something crack in his chest. He pulled Maya close, careful not to jostle her too much. "Listen to me. You're not expensive. You're priceless. Every penny, every hour, every sacrifice. I'd do it 1,000,000 times over. You understand me?" Maya nodded against his shoulder, but Lucas could feel her tears soaking through his shirt. "If I take this new job," he said quietly, "it's not because you're a burden. It's because you deserve a father who doesn't have to choose between being at your appointments and keeping a roof over our heads. You deserve stability, okay?" "Okay," Maya whispered. "Maya Reed?" A nurse appeared in the doorway, chart in hand. "Dr. Morrison is ready for you." The appointment lasted 45 minutes. Dr. Morrison, a woman in her 50s who'd been treating Maya for 3 years, listened to her lungs, checked her oxygen saturation, asked detailed questions about the morning's episode. Her expression remained professionally neutral, but Lucas had learned to read the small signs, the slight furrow between her eyebrows, the way she listened to Maya's left lung twice. "I'm going to adjust her maintenance medication," Dr. Morrison said finally, scribbling on her prescription pad. "And I want to see her back in 2 weeks instead of the usual monthly checkup. This is the 3rd significant episode in as many months. We need to be more aggressive." More aggressive meant more expensive. Lucas knew that without asking, but he just nodded. "I'm also referring you to a social worker," Dr. Morrison continued, her voice gentle. "Not because there's anything wrong, but because they have resources that might help. Programs for families managing chronic illness. Sometimes there are grants, assistance programs, things that can ease the financial burden." Lucas felt his face heat. "We're managing fine." "I know you are. You're an excellent father, Lucas, but managing and thriving are different things. Maya's condition isn't going away. It might be a lifetime of management. There's no shame in accepting help when it's available." The same message, coming from different people. Marcus. Mrs. Chen. Now Dr. Morrison. Even Maya herself, in her own way. The universe seemed determined to tell Lucas something he didn't want to hear. They left the hospital with new prescriptions and a follow-up appointment card. Maya fell asleep in the rideshare on the way home, her head lolling against Lucas's shoulder. He carried her inside, tucked her into bed, and sat at his kitchen table staring at Evelyn's business card until the numbers blurred. His phone rang. Marcus. "Reed, we need to talk." Lucas's stomach dropped. "About today?" "About a lot of things. Can you come in tomorrow, early, before your shift?" "Yeah, is everything okay?" "Just come in. We'll talk then." The call ended, leaving Lucas with a familiar sense of dread. He'd been written up twice in the past year for missing shifts due to Maya's emergencies. Company policy allowed 3 before termination. If this was number 3, he'd be job hunting with a sick daughter and bills piling up faster than he could count them. That night, after Maya was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Lucas finally pulled out his laptop. He Googled Heart Technologies, really looked at it for the first time. Their website was sleek and professional, full of corporate language about innovation and integrity and employee wellness. He clicked through to their careers page, found the warehouse positions Jennifer had mentioned. The salary was 30% higher than his current job. The benefits package included comprehensive medical coverage with no waiting period, flexible scheduling for family emergencies, and something called caregiver support services that seemed to involve counseling and resource coordination for employees with dependents who had chronic illnesses. It was everything he needed, everything he'd been quietly desperate for but too proud to admit. Lucas pulled up his email and started typing to Jennifer before he could change his mind. Jennifer, thank you for your patience. I'd like to schedule a tour of the facilities and discuss the position in more detail. Would Friday afternoon work? Lucas? He hit send before the doubt could creep back in, then closed the laptop and sat in the dark kitchen, wondering what he'd just set in motion. The response came at 7 a.m. the next morning, just as Lucas was making breakfast. Friday at 2 p.m. works perfectly. I'll send you the address and visitor pass information. Looking forward to meeting you in person. Jennifer. Lucas pocketed his phone and focused on getting Maya ready for school. She seemed better this morning, her breathing easier, though he still administered her morning medications and watched her carefully for any signs of regression. You have your inhaler? He asked as she packed her backpack. Yes, Dad. And you'll tell your teacher immediately if you start feeling tight? Yes, Dad. And you'll eat all your lunch, even the vegetables? Maya rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. Yes, Dad, you're extra worried today. I'm always worried about you. I know, that's your job. She hugged him tightly. But I'm okay, really. Lucas walked her to the bus stop, waited until she was safely on board and waving at him from a window seat, then headed to the warehouse with a knot of anxiety in his stomach. Marcus was waiting in his office, 2 cups of coffee already poured. That was either a very good sign or a very bad one. Sit, Marcus said, gesturing to the chair Lucas had occupied 2 days ago. Lucas sat, bracing himself. I got a call yesterday, Marcus began, wrapping his hands around his coffee cup. From Jennifer Cho at Heart Technologies. She said you'd be touring their facility on Friday and wanted to verify your employment here. Lucas's mouth went dry. I can explain. Let me finish. Marcus held up a hand. She also said that if you accept their position, Heart Technologies would like to establish a partnership with us for employee training and advancement opportunities. Apparently, Evelyn Hart was impressed not just by what you did, but by how you carry yourself. She thinks you represent the kind of employee they want to build their culture around. Lucas stared. I don't understand. Neither did I at first, but then I thought about it. You're reliable, Reed. You're competent under pressure. You give a damn about doing things right. Those qualities are rare. Marcus paused. I should fire you. Company policy says 3 absences for family emergency in a year is grounds for termination, and yesterday was number 3. Lucas's heart stopped. But I'm not going to do that, Marcus continued, because that policy is bullshit, and I've been fighting corporate about it for 2 years. Instead, I'm going to tell you what I think you should do, which is take the Hart job. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Take it, and don't look back. Better pay, better benefits, better everything for you and your daughter. This place, he gestured around the warehouse office. This place doesn't deserve you, Lucas. We can't offer you what you need. Hart can. But, no buts. Look, I get pride. I get not wanting charity, but this isn't charity. You saved that woman's life. She's trying to say thank you in a way that actually matters. Let her. Lucas felt something shift in his chest, like a weight he'd been carrying was finally being acknowledged. What about here? I can't just leave you short-staffed. We'll manage. We always do. And if Hart sets up that partnership they mentioned, maybe we'll improve things for the other workers here too. You taking that job might help more people than just you and Maya. They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of the warehouse filtering through the office walls. Finally, Lucas said, "Thank you for not firing me. For this. Don't thank me. Just go be excellent somewhere that appreciates it." Marcus stood, extending his hand. "You've got the rest of the week here if you want it, or you can consider this your notice period. Your call." Lucas shook his hand, feeling the finality of the moment. He'd been at this warehouse for 4 years, had built friendships here, had learned the rhythms of the place. Leaving felt surreal, but staying felt impossible. Friday afternoon found Lucas standing outside Hart Technologies' distribution center in South Seattle, checking his reflection in his truck's side mirror. He'd worn his best jeans and a button-down shirt that didn't have any stains, had made sure his shoes were clean. It felt inadequate somehow, like showing up to a formal dinner in casual clothes. The facility was massive, all clean lines and modern architecture, with solar panels covering the roof and employee parking that looked better maintained than some apartment complexes Lucas had seen. He walked through the main entrance and gave his name to the receptionist, who smiled warmly and directed him to a seating area. Jennifer Cho appeared within minutes, exactly as professional as she'd sounded on the phone. Mid-30s, wearing business casual, carrying a tablet and radiating competent efficiency. "Lucas, it's wonderful to finally meet you in person." She shook his hand firmly. "How's your daughter doing?" The question caught him off guard. "Better, thank you. She's had a stable week." "I'm glad to hear it." Ms. Hart asked me to express her hope that Maya's feeling better. She was worried when she heard about the episode. Jennifer gestured toward a hallway. "Shall we start the tour?" The facility was impressive in ways Lucas hadn't expected. The warehouse floor was organized and well lit, with clear safety protocols displayed throughout. But it was the smaller details that struck him. The break room with comfortable seating and free coffee, the on-site medical clinic with a nurse practitioner, the bulletin board advertising employee resource groups and family support services. "Our warehouse operations run 3 shifts, Jennifer explained as they walked. But we offer flexible scheduling for employees with caregiving responsibilities. If you need to leave for a medical emergency, you just notify your supervisor and go. No questions, no penalties." "Well, that seems like it could be abused," Lucas said, then immediately regretted the observation. He was supposed to be accepting this opportunity, not questioning it. But Jennifer just smiled. "You'd think so, wouldn't you? But we've found that when you treat employees like adults and trust them, they rise to that expectation. Our retention rate is 93%, and our productivity metrics are better than industry standard. Turns out people work harder when they're not stressed about choosing between their job and their family." She showed him the employee training center, the equipment staging area, introduced him to several warehouse workers who seemed genuinely happy in their jobs. Everyone knew who he was, the guy who saved Ms. Hart, but they treated him with respect rather than celebrity curiosity. Finally, Jennifer led him to a small conference room where someone was waiting. Lucas's breath caught when he recognized Evelyn Hart, dressed more casually than at their cafe meeting, looking somehow both more relaxed and more nervous. "Lucas," she said, standing. "Thank you for coming. Jennifer, could you give us a few minutes?" "Of course." Jennifer slipped out, closing the door behind her. Lucas and Evelyn stood on opposite sides of the conference table, the air between them charged with unspoken things. "I hope the tour was helpful," Evelyn began. "I wanted you to see that this is a real opportunity, not just some elaborate thank you gift." "It's impressive," Lucas admitted. "More than I expected." "But you're still hesitant." "I don't want to take a job I'm not qualified for just because I happen to be in the right place at the right time." Evelyn's expression softened. "Can I tell you something? The night you saved me, I'd just come from a board meeting where I'd spent 3 hours arguing for exactly these kinds of employee benefits. Half my board thinks I'm crazy, thinks we're wasting money on soft programs that don't show immediate ROI. And then I nearly died in a restaurant while people who probably make 6 figures stood there watching. You know who saved me? A warehouse worker making maybe $40,000 a year who recognized an emergency and acted on it without hesitation. That told me everything I needed to know about what really matters." She moved around the table, closer to him, but not invasive of his space. "You're not getting this job because you saved me, Lucas. You're getting this job because you're exactly the kind of person we need here. Someone who thinks clearly under pressure. Someone who acts when action is needed. Someone who gives a damn about doing things right. That sounds like something your PR team came up with, Lucas said, then immediately regretted his bluntness. But Evelyn laughed, a real laugh that transformed her face. Actually, I forbade my PR team from getting involved in this at all. They wanted to do a whole campaign around anonymous heroes and community values. I told them absolutely not. This is between you and me. She sobered. Look, I know this is complicated. I know it feels like charity or pity or something that makes you uncomfortable. But can I ask you something? Okay. If the situations were reversed, if you had the power to help someone who needed it, someone whose child was sick and who was killing himself trying to stay afloat, would you do it? Lucas didn't hesitate. Of course. Then why won't you let me? The question hung in the air between them. Lucas found himself without a good answer, without any answer that didn't sound like pride disguised as principle. I have a daughter who needs me, he said finally, who needs me healthy and present and not stressed to the point of breaking. I've been telling myself I can handle it, that we're managing fine, but the truth is, we're not. We're surviving, but that's not the same as living. And I'm scared that if I keep going like this, something's going to break, either my body or my ability to be the father she needs. So let me help prevent that, Evelyn said gently. Not because you owe me, but because your daughter deserves a father who doesn't have to choose between her health and his job. Because you deserve to work somewhere that values what you bring. Because sometimes accepting help is the bravest thing you can do. Lucas felt the last of his resistance crumbling. The salary you're offering, it's almost 40% more than I make now. It's fair market rate for someone with your skills and reliability. We checked. And the benefits start immediately? Day 1. Full medical, dental, vision. The Caregiver Support Program would assign you a coordinator who helps navigate specialists, insurance, all of that. You'd have backup when you need it. Why are you doing this? The question came out raw, almost desperate. Really, not the corporate answer, the real answer. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment, her eyes distant. My father died when I was 16. Heart attack. He was in a meeting surrounded by colleagues, and not one of them knew CPR. They just watched him die while they waited for paramedics. I've always wondered if just one person had known what to do, had acted instead of freezing, would he still be here? She refocused on Lucas. You're that person, the one who acts, the one who doesn't freeze. And I have the power to make sure your daughter doesn't lose her father because he's too stubborn to accept help when it's offered. So I'm doing this for 16-year-old me, for every child who's ever lost a parent too soon, and for Maya, who deserves to grow up with you in her life. Lucas felt his throat tighten. He thought of Maya's face this morning, the way she'd smiled and told him not to worry so much. He thought of the inhaler that cost $200 a month, the specialist appointments they'd been postponing, the constant calculation of what they could afford and what they couldn't. He thought of Dr. Morrison's words about managing versus thriving. When would you need me to start? He asked quietly. Evelyn's face lit up with a smile that was pure relief. Is Monday too soon? I should give my current job 2 weeks' notice. Already handled. Marcus agreed to let you go immediately with 2 weeks' severance pay. We've worked it out. Lucas shook his head, half laughing. You really thought of everything. I'm a CEO. Thinking of everything is literally my job. Evelyn extended her hand. So? Are we doing this? Lucas looked at her hand, at the opportunity it represented, at everything it could mean for Maya's future. Then he thought of his daughter asking him what they were grateful for that morning, and he knew exactly what his answer would be tomorrow. He shook Evelyn's hand. We're doing this. The smile Evelyn gave him was worth every moment of hesitation, every second of doubt. Welcome to Heart Technologies, Lucas. I promise you won't regret this. As they finalized details, start date, shift preferences, paperwork, Lucas felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not just relief, though that was there. Not just gratitude, though he was drowning in that too. But hope. Real, solid hope that maybe things could actually get better. One more thing, Evelyn said as they were wrapping up. The employee resource groups I mentioned, there's one specifically for parents of children with chronic illnesses. They meet monthly, share resources, support each other. You might find it helpful. I'm not really a support group kind of person, Lucas admitted. Neither was I until I tried it. We have one for people dealing with grief. It helped more than I expected. She paused. Just think about it. They walked out together through the impressive facility, past employees who nodded respectfully at Evelyn and curiously at Lucas. When they reached the lobby, Evelyn stopped. Thank you, she said simply, for saving my life, for giving me the chance to do this, for being exactly who you are. I should be thanking you, Lucas replied. This is going to change everything for me and Maya. Good. That's exactly what I hoped. Evelyn's phone buzzed and she glanced at it, making a face. I have a board call in 5 minutes. But Lucas? I'm really glad you're here. She disappeared into the building's interior, leaving Lucas standing in the lobby, his new employee badge in his pocket. His entire future suddenly, impossibly different. He made it to his truck before calling Maya's school, asking them to have her call him during her break. When his phone rang 20 minutes later, Maya's excited voice filled the line. Dad, is everything okay? Everything's great, sweetheart. I just wanted to tell you, I took the new job. The squeal that came through the phone was worth everything. Really? Dad, that's amazing. Does this mean better insurance? Can we finally schedule that appointment with the specialist Dr. Morrison wanted? Yes and yes. And Maya, we're going to be okay. Better than okay. I told you to take it, Maya said, and Lucas could hear the smile in her voice. I'm always right about these things. You are. You absolutely are. That night, Lucas sat at his kitchen table with paperwork spread in front of him, medical bills he could finally pay, insurance forms that would actually cover Maya's treatments, a salary that meant they could move to a better apartment if they wanted, maybe even save money for her future. But more than that, he had time. Flexible scheduling meant he could attend Maya's school events, could take her to appointments without panic, could be present in her life, instead of constantly running to catch up. His phone buzzed with a text from Evelyn. I forgot to mention, we have a company picnic next month. Family's welcome. Maya would love it. Think about it. Lucas smiled and typed back, We'll be there. 3 simple words that represented so much more: acceptance, gratitude, and the beginning of something neither of them could have predicted when Lucas had walked across that restaurant to help a choking stranger. Sometimes, he thought, life changes in an instant. Sometimes it's a single moment of choice that ripples outward, touching everything, transforming everything. He'd made his choice in that restaurant, acting on instinct and training and basic human decency. Now Evelyn had made her choice too, and Lucas was finally learning that accepting help wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. It was letting other people show the same kind of courage he'd shown, the courage to reach out, to act, to make a difference when the opportunity arose. He looked at Maya's closed bedroom door, heard her soft breathing through the gap, and felt a peace he hadn't known in years. Tomorrow he'd go to the warehouse for his last few days, say goodbye to colleagues and routines. Monday, he'd start fresh at Heart Technologies with better pay and better benefits and a boss who understood that family came first. But tonight, he was just grateful. Grateful for the medical training that had prepared him for an emergency. Grateful for Evelyn's persistence in finding him, in offering help despite his resistance. Grateful for Maya, whose strength and resilience reminded him every day what truly mattered. The story could have ended that night in the restaurant, a brief moment of heroism that faded into memory. But instead it was just beginning, unfolding in ways neither Lucas nor Evelyn could have imagined, proving that sometimes the greatest gift we can give is allowing others to give to us. Lucas turned off the kitchen light and headed to bed, already thinking about Monday, about new beginnings, about possibilities he'd never dared to imagine. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, he fell asleep not with worry, but with hope. Monday morning arrived with unexpected sunshine, the kind of crisp October light that made Seattle feel almost optimistic. Lucas stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting his collar for the 3rd time, feeling ridiculous about how nervous he was. It was just a job. He'd worked in warehouses before. He knew what he was doing, but this wasn't just a job, and he knew it. Maya appeared in the doorway, already dressed for school, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She studied him with the serious expression she got when she was trying not to laugh. Dad, you look like you're going to a wedding, not work. Lucas glanced down at his new work pants, still creased from the package. and the polo shirt with the Heart Technologies logo embroidered on the chest. Too much? You look nice, Maya said, relenting. Professional, like someone important. I'm not important, sweetheart. I'm just a warehouse worker. You're important to me, Maya said simply, then coughed twice, the dry kind that meant her lungs were having a touchy morning, but nothing crisis level yet. And apparently you're important to Ms. Hart, or she wouldn't have hired you. Lucas grabbed Maya's inhaler from the counter and handed it to her. 2 puffs, please. And I didn't get hired because I'm important. I got hired because I was in the right place at the right time. Maya used the inhaler obediently, holding her breath for 10 seconds the way the doctor had taught her, then exhaled slowly. Mrs. Chen says that's called humility, but sometimes it's just being stubborn about accepting compliments. Since when do you and Mrs. Chen discuss my character flaws? Since always, she makes good observations. Maya grinned, her breathing already easier. Come on, Dad, we're both going to be late for our first days. They rode the bus together, Maya chattering about her excitement for the new school year projects while Lucas tried to calm the flutter of anxiety in his stomach. He dropped her at school, watched her disappear through the doors with a backward wave, then caught a different bus towards South Seattle and his new life. The Heart Technologies distribution center looked even more impressive in the morning light. Lucas badged in at the security gate, his brand new employee ID still feeling foreign in his wallet, and followed the directions Jennifer had emailed him to the warehouse manager's office. Robert Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen, as he immediately clarified with a laugh, was in his late 40s with an easy smile and a firm handshake. Lucas, welcome aboard. Jennifer's told me a lot about you. Hopefully good things, Lucas said, trying for humor. All good things. Quick thinking, calm under pressure, reliable. That's exactly what we need here. Robert gestured for Lucas to sit. I know you've got warehouse experience, but Hart runs things a little differently than most places. I want to walk you through our philosophy before we get into the technical stuff. What followed was unlike any orientation Lucas had experienced. Robert didn't just explain safety protocols and productivity metrics. He talked about work-life balance, about the importance of communication, about how Hart measured success not just in shipped units, but in employee satisfaction and retention. We've got a guy on second shift whose son has leukemia, Robert said at one point. Some weeks he's here full-time, some weeks we barely see him because his kid needs him. And that's okay. We work around it. We cover for each other. Because next month it might be someone else with an emergency, and we'll cover for them too. Lucas felt something in his chest ease. That's not how most places operate. No, it's not. But Ms. Hart built this company on the idea that if you take care of your people, they'll take care of the work. Turns out she was right. Robert stood. Come on, let me introduce you to your team. The warehouse floor was organized chaos, forklifts moving with practiced precision, workers calling out numbers and confirmations, the steady hum of productivity. But there was something else Lucas noticed immediately. People were talking to each other, joking. There was an ease to the work that he'd rarely seen in his previous job, where everyone had been too stressed or too tired to do anything but survive their shifts. Team, gather up for a minute, Robert called, and a group of about a dozen workers set down what they were doing and approached. This is Lucas Reed. He's joining us starting today. Lucas, this is your crew. The introductions came rapid fire. Marcus, different Marcus, this one built like a linebacker with a surprisingly gentle handshake. Sarah, a woman in her 30s who immediately asked if he had kids because she had 3 and knew all the best pediatricians in Seattle. David, who'd been with Hart since the beginning and knew every corner of the warehouse like his own home. Others whose names Lucas tried to commit to memory, knowing he'd probably mix them up for the first week. You're the guy who saved Ms. Hart, Sarah said, not as a question, but as a statement of fact. That was incredible. Lucas felt his face heat. I just did what anyone would do. Except nobody else did, David pointed out. That takes guts and skill. It takes training, Lucas corrected. Anyone can learn the Heimlich. Which is why Hart brought in trainers last week to teach everyone here, Robert said. Ms. Hart figured if one person knowing how to respond saved her life, imagine what a whole company of trained responders could do. We've got CPR and first aid certification classes starting next month for anyone interested. Lucas stared. She did that because of me? She did that because of what you taught her. that preparation matters, that ordinary people can do extraordinary things if they're ready. Robert clapped him on the shoulder. But that's enough celebrity talk. Let's get you actually working. The day passed in a blur of learning new systems, new protocols, new rhythms. The work itself was familiar. Inventory management, loading, sorting, but the culture was unlike anything Lucas had experienced. When he mentioned needing to leave exactly at 3 to pick up Maya from school, nobody blinked. Sarah just said, "Yeah, I do the same thing. We'll make sure your work's covered." During lunch break, Lucas sat with David and Marcus in a break room that had actual comfortable chairs and a coffee machine that didn't dispense brown water pretending to be caffeine. "So, how's it compare to your last place?" David asked, biting into a sandwich that looked homemade and substantial. "It's different," Lucas said carefully, not wanting to badmouth his former employer. "More organized, calmer, somehow." "That's the Hart effect," Marcus said. "She's got this theory that stress kills productivity. So instead of running everyone ragged, she staffs properly, pays well, and treats us like adults. Turns out, it works." "How long have you both been here?" 6 years, David said. "Best job I've ever had." 3 years, Marcus added. "Came from a place a lot like where you probably came from. Almost quit after the first week because I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. Kept thinking nobody could actually be this decent to their employees." "But they are," David finished. "It's real. This is just how Hart does business." Lucas wanted to ask more, but his phone buzzed with a text from Maya's school. His heart rate spiked instantly. Texts from school usually meant problems, but it was just a reminder about parent-teacher conferences next week. He exhaled slowly, willing his pulse to settle. "Your daughter?" Sarah had appeared beside their table, her own lunch in hand. "How's she doing?" Lucas hesitated, then decided honesty was easier than deflection. "She has a chronic respiratory condition, autoimmune. Some days are better than others." Sarah nodded sympathetically. "My middle kid has severe asthma. I get it. The constant vigilance, the emergency plans, the never quite being able to relax." "Exactly that. You know about the caregiver support program?" When Lucas shook his head, Sarah pulled out her phone. "Here, I'll send you the link. They assign you a coordinator who helps navigate insurance, find specialists, even just someone to vent to who gets it. Changed my life, honestly." The afternoon shift continued with more training, more introductions, more moments where Lucas had to remind himself this was real. This was his actual job now. At 2:45, Robert found him and said, "Go get your daughter. We've got this covered." Lucas made it to Maya's school with 10 minutes to spare, something that would have been impossible at his old job. When Maya emerged from the building and saw him waiting, her face lit up. "Dad, you're early!" "I know. New job has better hours." They walked to the bus stop together, Maya chattering about her day. A good day, by her account, minimal coughing, lots of learning. Lucas felt the tension he'd been carrying start to dissolve. This was going to work. It was actually going to work. That evening, after dinner and homework and Maya's evening medications, Lucas's phone rang. Jennifer Cho. "Lucas, hi. I hope I'm not calling too late." "It's fine. Is everything okay?" "Everything's great. I'm actually calling because Ms. Hart wanted me to check in on your first day. How did it go?" Lucas glanced at Maya, who was reading on the couch, her nebulizer beside her just in case. "It went well, really well. Everyone was welcoming." "I'm so glad. And I wanted to remind you that your caregiver support coordinator will be reaching out tomorrow to schedule an initial meeting. Her name is Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, and she's wonderful. She'll help you get Maya set up with the specialist Dr. Morrison recommended." "How do you know about Dr. Morrison?" Lucas asked, then immediately felt stupid. Of course they knew. They'd probably reviewed Maya's medical records as part of the benefits enrollment. "We do our research," Jennifer said diplomatically. "Dr. Okonkwo worked with Children's Hospital for 15 years before joining Hart. She knows the system inside and out." After the call ended, Lucas sat in his kitchen, overwhelmed by the sudden comprehensiveness of the support being offered. It wasn't just a job. It was a safety net, a system designed to catch people before they fell. The next morning brought a call from Dr. Okonkwo, whose warm Nigerian accent immediately put Lucas at ease. They scheduled a meeting for Thursday afternoon, and she rattled off a list of things she'd already begun arranging: appointments with the pulmonary specialist Maya needed, a consultation with an immunologist, even a nutritionist who specialized in children with chronic conditions. "I know it seems like a lot," Dr. Okonkwo said, "but my job is to coordinate all of this so you can focus on being Maya's father, not her medical case manager." "I don't know what to say," Lucas admitted. "This is more help than I knew existed." "That's because most people have to navigate the system alone. Hart believes you shouldn't have to. We'll talk more on Thursday, but Lucas, you're not alone anymore. Remember that." The weeks that followed developed their own rhythm. Lucas settled into his new role, discovering he was good at the work, that his calm demeanor and problem-solving skills made him a natural leader even though he'd just started. Robert began giving him more responsibilities, trusting him with complex logistics and training new employees. Maya's health stabilized in ways Lucas hadn't dared hope for. The new specialist Dr. Okonkwo connected them with adjusted her medication protocol. The nutritionist helped them identify food triggers they'd never considered. For the first time in years, Maya went 3 weeks without a serious episode, but it was the small things that struck Lucas most deeply. Coming home with energy left to actually play with Maya instead of just surviving until bedtime. Being able to afford the specialist copays without anxiety. Having colleagues who understood when he needed to leave for a school event or medical appointment. 6 weeks into his new job, Lucas received an email from Jennifer asking if he and Maya would like to attend the company's annual family picnic. It would be casual, she assured him. Just employees and their families, no press, no formality. Lucas almost declined, old habits dying hard, but Maya's excitement when he mentioned it changed his mind. The picnic was held at a private park Hart rented for the day, complete with food trucks, games, and a relaxed atmosphere that felt more like a neighborhood gathering than a corporate event. Lucas arrived with Maya, both of them slightly overwhelmed by the crowd, but Sarah spotted them immediately and waved them over to where her family had claimed picnic tables. "Lucas! Maya! Come meet everyone!" The afternoon unfolded in unexpected joy. Maya played with other kids, her laughter carrying across the park. Lucas found himself actually relaxing, talking with coworkers about things that had nothing to do with work. Kids' schools, favorite restaurants, the Seahawks' disappointing season. He was helping Maya navigate the dessert table when he felt a presence beside him. Evelyn Hart, dressed in jeans and a Hart Technologies t-shirt, looking more at ease than he'd ever seen her. "Lucas," she said warmly, "I'm so glad you came. Ms. Hart." "Evelyn, please, we're not at work." She smiled at Maya. "You must be Maya. I've heard wonderful things about you." Maya, never shy, extended her hand formally. "It's nice to meet you, Ms. Hart. Thank you for giving my dad a good job." Evelyn shook her hand seriously. "It's nice to meet you too, Maya, and you're welcome, but really, your dad earned that job all on his own." "Because you saved her life, right, Dad?" Maya looked at Lucas with pride that made his chest tight. "I helped when someone needed it," Lucas said quietly. "That's all?" "That's everything," Evelyn corrected gently. She looked at Lucas, and he saw something in her eyes he recognized. Gratitude, yes, but also understanding. A shared knowledge of what it meant to be responsible for someone else's well-being, to carry that weight daily. "Can we talk for a minute? Just briefly. Maya, there's a face painting station over there if you're interested." Maya's eyes lit up. "Can I, Dad?" "Sure. I'll come find you in a few minutes." As Maya ran off toward the face painting line, Evelyn gestured to a quieter area near the edge of the park. They walked in comfortable silence until they were away from the main crowd. "How are you really doing?" Evelyn asked. Not the polite answer, the real one. Lucas considered deflecting, then decided she deserved honesty. "I'm still getting used to things not being hard. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense. I felt the same way when my company first started succeeding, kept waiting for the crisis, for everything to fall apart." "Did it get easier, the waiting?" "Eventually. Once I learned to trust that good things can last, that not everything is temporary." Evelyn paused. "I've been getting updates from Robert. He says you're doing exceptionally well. Natural leadership skills," he said. "Calm in chaos." "I'm just doing my job." "You're doing more than that, and you know it." Evelyn's tone was firm but kind. "I want to talk to you about something, but I need you to hear me out before you automatically say no." Lucas's guard went up immediately. Okay. Hart is expanding. We're opening 2 new distribution centers over the next year, and we need strong managers to help build them from the ground up. Robert recommended you for the training program. I've been here 6 weeks, Lucas said incredulously. That's way too fast for a promotion. Or it's exactly the right timing. You're learning our systems without the baggage of doing things the old way. You have the skills we need. And Lucas, she met his eyes directly. You saved my life. I trust you in crisis situations more than people who've been with the company for years. That matters. This feels like favoritism. It's recognition of ability. There's a difference. Evelyn's voice softened. I'm not asking you to decide today. The training program doesn't start for 3 months, but I want you to think about it. Think about what it could mean for you and Maya. Better salary, better advancement opportunities, the chance to shape something from the beginning. Lucas looked across the park to where Maya was getting her face painted, a butterfly, from what he could see at this distance. She was laughing, looking healthy and happy in a way that had been rare before. I'll think about it, he said finally. That's all I ask. Evelyn smiled. Now go rescue your daughter before they turn her into a complete rainbow. Lucas rejoined the picnic, but Evelyn's words stayed with him. A promotion. Leadership. The chance to build something meaningful. It should have felt impossible, but somehow it felt inevitable, like a path opening up that he'd never seen before. That night, after Maya was asleep, Lucas sat at his kitchen table with a notebook, writing down everything that had changed in 6 weeks. Better health insurance that actually covered Maya's needs. Stable income that meant he could save money for the first time in years. Coworkers who felt like friends. Work that challenged him in good ways. Time with Maya that wasn't just crisis management, and now, potentially, a career path instead of just a job. He thought about the man he'd been 2 months ago, exhausted, barely holding on, too proud to admit he needed help. He thought about the moment in that restaurant when he'd acted on instinct, never imagining it would lead here. His phone buzzed, a text from Evelyn. Forgot to mention, no pressure on the promotion thing. You've already exceeded every expectation. Whatever you decide, you have a place here. E. Lucas smiled and typed back. Thank you. For everything. This opportunity has changed our lives. L. The response came quickly. You changed mine first. Fair trade. Sleep well, Lucas. He set down his phone and looked around his modest apartment. They could afford something better now, something with more space, maybe even a yard for Maya. But this place had been their home through the hardest times. It felt wrong to leave it behind just because things were easier now. Or maybe that was just old thinking, the scarcity mindset that assumed good things wouldn't last. Lucas pulled out his laptop and started researching apartments in better school districts, places with parks nearby, buildings with elevators so Maya wouldn't have to climb stairs on her bad days. It felt simultaneously presumptuous and practical, planning for a future that finally seemed possible. The following Thursday, Lucas met with Dr. Okonkwo in her office at Hart Technologies. She had Maya's entire medical history spread across her desk, color-coded and organized in a way that would have taken Lucas months to achieve. I've consulted with Dr. Morrison, she began, and we've developed a comprehensive care plan. The new medications are helping, but I think we can do better. What followed was the most thorough medical discussion Lucas had ever experienced. Dr. Okonkwo explained treatment options he'd never heard of, clinical trials Maya might qualify for, specialists who were doing cutting-edge work with autoimmune conditions. She'd already scheduled appointments, coordinated with insurance, even arranged for a home health nurse to check in weekly. This is too much, Lucas said, overwhelmed. I can't possibly. You don't have to do anything except be Maya's father, Dr. Okonkwo interrupted gently. Coordinating care is my job. You just focus on her emotional well-being. Let me handle the logistics. Lucas felt tears threatening and blinked them back. Why? Why is Hart doing all this? Because Evelyn Hart believes that no parent should have to choose between caring for their child and keeping their job. Because she's built a company that values people as humans, not just resources. And because, Dr. Okonkwo's expression softened, between you and me, I think what you did for her made her realize how fragile everything is, how quickly we can lose what matters. She doesn't want Maya to lose you to exhaustion or stress or preventable circumstances. The weight of that realization settled over Lucas. This wasn't just about gratitude for saving someone's life. It was about Evelyn understanding in the most visceral way possible how precious and precarious life could be. Over the next month, Lucas watched Maya transform. Better treatment meant fewer episodes. Fewer episodes meant better sleep. Better sleep meant more energy. More energy meant a happier, more active child who could participate in school activities she'd previously had to skip. One evening, Maya came home from school with a permission slip for a weekend field trip to the mountains. In the past, Lucas would have immediately said no, too risky, too far from medical care, too many variables. But now, with Dr. Okonkwo's support and a comprehensive emergency plan, he found himself signing the form. Really? Maya's eyes were wide with disbelief. Dad, really? I can go. Really? Dr. Okonkwo says your lungs are strong enough. You'll take all your medications, follow all the rules, and call me if anything feels wrong. But yes, you can go. Maya threw her arms around him, and Lucas held his daughter tight, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breathing, the strength in her small frame. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That night, Lucas texted Evelyn. Maya's going on her first field trip in 2 years. Thank you for making that possible. The response came within minutes. That's wonderful. See what happens when you let people help? Lucas smiled at his phone, then added, I've been thinking about the management training program. I'd like to apply. 3 dots appeared, then, I was hoping you'd say that. Welcome to the next chapter, Lucas. You've earned it. The truth was, Lucas had earned nothing. He'd simply done what anyone should do, helped someone who needed it. But somehow, that moment had become a doorway to a life he'd never dared imagine. A life where Maya could be a regular kid instead of a medical case. A life where he could be a father instead of just a caregiver. A life where accepting help wasn't weakness, but wisdom. He thought about the training program starting in 2 months, about the challenges and opportunities ahead. He thought about Maya on her field trip, experiencing the world beyond hospitals and limitations. He thought about Evelyn, who'd turned a moment of crisis into something transformative for both of them. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Lucas Reed allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they were going to be more than okay. They were going to thrive. The management training program began on a gray January morning, exactly 3 months after Lucas had first walked through Heart Technologies' doors. He sat in a conference room with 11 other employees, all of them looking as nervous as he felt, while a woman named Margaret Chen, Director of Leadership Development, explained what the next 6 months would entail. This isn't just about learning to manage inventory or supervise shifts, Margaret said, clicking through a presentation that outlined everything from conflict resolution to financial planning. This is about learning to lead people, to inspire them, to create the kind of workplace culture that makes Heart Technologies different from everywhere else. Lucas took notes diligently, aware that he was the newest employee in the room. Others had been with Heart for years, had earned their place through sustained excellence. He was here because he'd saved the CEO's life, and no matter what Evelyn or Robert said about his natural abilities, that fact sat uncomfortably in his mind. During the lunch break, a woman named Teresa approached him. She'd been with Heart for 5 years, working her way up from entry-level to shift supervisor. You're Lucas Reed, she said, not unkindly, the guy who saved Ms. Hart. That's me, Lucas acknowledged, waiting for whatever came next. I was angry when I heard you got into this program, Teresa said bluntly. 6 weeks on the job and already being groomed for management? It felt unfair. Lucas set down his sandwich. I understand that. It feels unfair to me too sometimes. But then I watched you work, Teresa continued. I asked Robert about you. I heard how you handled that equipment malfunction last week when everyone was panicking. You didn't freeze. You didn't blame anyone. You just fixed the problem and made sure everyone learned from it. She paused. You're here because you deserve to be here. I wanted you to know that. Something tight in Lucas's chest loosened. Thank you. That means a lot. Don't make me regret saying it, Teresa said with a slight smile. Come on, Margaret's about to start the afternoon session on difficult conversations. The training was rigorous and demanding, layered on top of Lucas's regular work schedule. He spent mornings in the warehouse, afternoons in training sessions, evenings helping Maya with homework and managing her care. His calendar became a complex puzzle of responsibilities, but for the first time in years, all the pieces actually fit. Dr. Okonkwo had been right about the new treatment protocol. Maya had gone 6 weeks without a serious episode, the longest stretch since her diagnosis. She was thriving at school, making friends, joining the art club she'd always been too tired for before. Lucas watched his daughter bloom and felt gratitude so profound it sometimes brought him to tears. One evening in late February, while Lucas was reviewing training materials at the kitchen table, Maya looked up from her homework with a question that caught him off guard. "Dad, do you ever talk to Ms. Hart, like, just to talk?" Lucas set down his pen. "Sometimes? Why?" "Because she changed our whole life, and we never really said thank you." "Not really." "I've thanked her many times, sweetheart." "But like, have you told her about me doing better? About how I went on the field trip and didn't need my inhaler once? About how I'm not scared all the time anymore?" Maya's voice was earnest. "I think she'd want to know that what she did mattered." Lucas considered this. His communication with Evelyn had been professional since he'd started the training program. Occasional updates, brief exchanges about work matters, nothing personal. He'd convinced himself it was appropriate to maintain distance, to not presume on a relationship that had begun in crisis and obligation. But Maya was right. Evelyn deserved to know that her generosity had created ripples far beyond a job and benefits. That night, after Maya was asleep, Lucas composed a text to Evelyn. He deleted it 3 times, trying to find the right words, before finally settling on simplicity. "Maya wanted me to tell you that she's doing better than she has in years. She says we haven't properly thanked you for changing our lives. She's right. So thank you, Evelyn, for everything you've given us. L." The response came 20 minutes later. "This message just made my entire week. I'm so happy Maya's thriving. Can I take you both to dinner this weekend? No business talk, no obligations, just dinner with friends." Lucas stared at the word friends for a long moment. Was that what they were? Could you be friends with someone who'd essentially rescued your entire life? He typed back before he could overthink it. "Maya would love that. Saturday work for you?" They met at a small Italian restaurant in Ballard, the kind of neighborhood place with checkered tablecloths and servers who'd worked there for decades. Evelyn arrived in jeans and a sweater, her hair down, looking nothing like the polished CEO from magazine covers. Maya was initially shy, but Evelyn had a gift for putting people at ease. Within 10 minutes, they were discussing Maya's art projects, her favorite books, her dream of someday being well enough to try horseback riding. "There's a therapeutic riding center about 40 minutes from here," Evelyn mentioned casually. "They specialize in kids with chronic conditions. My foundation actually helps fund it." Maya's eyes went wide. "Really? Dad, can we—" "We'll look into it," Lucas said, shooting Evelyn a look that said you didn't have to do that. Evelyn just smiled innocently and changed the subject, asking Maya about her favorite school subjects. The dinner conversation flowed easily, moving from Maya's interest to Lucas's training program to Evelyn's latest challenges at work. She talked about her company with passion, but also frustration, explaining how growth meant constant balancing acts between maintaining culture and meeting demand. "Sometimes I wonder if we're expanding too fast," Evelyn admitted, twirling pasta on her fork. "If we're going to lose what makes Heart special in the pursuit of becoming bigger." "What makes Heart special?" Maya asked, with the directness of children who hadn't learned to avoid big questions. Evelyn considered this seriously. "I think it's that we remember people aren't just employees. They're humans with families and dreams and struggles. Your dad taught me that, actually." "Dad did?" Maya looked at Lucas with surprise. "He did. When he saved my life, he could have stayed, could have basked in being a hero. But he left because you were waiting for him at home." Evelyn's voice was soft. "That taught me what real priorities look like. It changed how I think about everything." Lucas felt his face heat. "I just did what any parent would do." Exactly, Evelyn said. "You put your child first, and if a CEO can build a company that lets employees do the same thing, put their families first without sacrificing their careers, then that's a company worth building." The evening ended with Maya hugging Evelyn goodbye and extracting a promise that they'd do this again soon. On the bus ride home, Maya chattered excitedly about horseback riding possibilities, while Lucas sat quietly, processing the evening. "You like her," Maya observed suddenly. "Ms. Hart, you like her as a person, not just a boss." "She's a good person," Lucas said carefully. "Kind, thoughtful. She looks at you different than other people look at you," Maya continued with unnerving perception. "Like she really sees you." Lucas had no response to that, so he just squeezed Maya's hand and changed the subject to homework that needed finishing. The training program intensified as winter turned to spring. Lucas found himself leading practice scenarios, mediating mock conflicts, presenting proposals to senior leadership. Margaret pulled him aside after one particularly successful presentation. "You have a gift for this, Lucas, for making people feel heard while still driving toward solutions. That's rare." "I just try to treat people the way I'd want to be treated," Lucas said. "That's exactly what I mean. It should be simple, but most people forget." Margaret handed him a folder. "I'm recommending you for the Seattle expansion project. It's the biggest opportunity we have right now, building a new facility from the ground up. You'd be assistant manager, working directly with the project lead." Lucas opened the folder, scanning the details. The position would mean a significant raise, more responsibility, and the chance to shape something from its foundation. It would also mean longer hours during the build-out phase, more stress, more visibility. "Can I think about it?" he asked. "Of course. But Lucas, don't let fear hold you back. You've earned this." That night, Lucas discussed the opportunity with Maya over dinner. She listened carefully, asking smart questions about what it would mean for their schedule, for her care, for their life. "It sounds like a big deal," Maya said finally, "like the kind of thing you'd regret not doing. But it would mean less time together during the build-out, more evening meetings, probably some weekends." Maya reached across the table and took his hand. "Dad, I'm doing good now, really good. I have Dr. Okonkwo coordinating everything, I have my care plan, I have Mrs. Chen, and all my doctors. You don't have to be scared of me getting sick anymore." "I'll always be scared of that, sweetheart." "I know, but you can be scared and still do important things." Maya squeezed his hand. "You should take it. You'd be amazing at it." Lucas accepted the position the next day. The Seattle expansion project launched in April, and suddenly Lucas's life shifted into a new gear entirely. He spent his days coordinating with architects and contractors, his evenings in meetings with senior leadership, and his spare moments reviewing plans and timelines. But he also made sure to be present for Maya. He attended every doctor's appointment, every school event that mattered to her, every quiet evening when she just needed her dad. The flexible scheduling that Hart offered meant he could do both, though some days he felt stretched thin enough to tear. Evelyn was involved in the expansion project too, and Lucas found himself working closely with her in ways he hadn't before. She'd appear at job sites in a hard hat and steel-toed boots, asking detailed questions about worker safety and efficiency. She'd join planning meetings, offering insights that came from years of building her company from nothing. They developed an easy working relationship, finishing each other's thoughts in meetings, anticipating each other's concerns, moving through complex decisions with an efficiency that impressed everyone around them. "You two are like a mind meld," Teresa observed one afternoon, watching Lucas and Evelyn debate floor plan configurations. "It's actually kind of spooky." After that meeting, Evelyn asked Lucas to walk the perimeter of the construction site with her. They walked in companionable silence for a while, watching the sun set over the skeletal framework of what would become Hart's largest facility. "Can I ask you something personal?" Evelyn said eventually. "Sure." "Are you happy? Really happy, not just managing okay happy?" Lucas considered the question honestly. "Yeah, I am. Maya's healthy. I'm doing work that matters. We have stability I never thought possible. So yes, I'm happy." "Good. That's good." Evelyn was quiet for a moment. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear it not as your CEO, but as someone who—" She paused, searching for words. "As someone who cares about you. Both of you." Lucas's heart rate picked up. "Okay. When you saved my life, I had this moment of clarity about how much time I'd wasted on things that didn't matter, how I'd built this empire but forgotten to build a life. Evelyn stopped walking, turning to face him. I've been so focused on making sure you and Maya were taken care of that I haven't told you what knowing you has meant to me. Evelyn, let me finish, please. She took a breath. You've shown me what it looks like to be genuinely good. Not performatively good, not strategically good, but actually fundamentally decent. You've reminded me why I started this company, to create spaces where people like you could thrive. And somewhere along the way, you've become one of my closest friends. Lucas felt emotion rising in his throat. You've become important to us too. Maya talks about you constantly, and he struggled with the words. I don't know how to thank you for giving us our lives back. You don't have to thank me. You gave me mine first. Evelyn's eyes were bright. I just want to make sure you know that this isn't obligation or charity or guilt. I value you, Lucas, your friendship, your integrity, your perspective. Not because you saved me, but because of who you are. They stood in the fading light, the construction site quiet around them, and Lucas felt the last wall he'd been holding up crumble. For so long, he'd convinced himself he had to be completely self-sufficient, that accepting help diminished him somehow. But standing here with Evelyn, he finally understood that letting people care about you was its own kind of strength. Thank you, he said simply, for seeing me, for seeing us. Evelyn smiled, and Lucas saw in her face the same relief he felt, the relief of being truly known and accepted. Come on, she said, let me buy you dinner. We can talk about something other than construction schedules for once. Over the following months, Lucas's friendship with Evelyn deepened in ways that surprised them both. They met for coffee every few weeks, conversations ranging from work challenges to personal struggles to Maya's latest achievements. Evelyn joined them for Maya's 9th birthday celebration, bringing a gift that showed she'd actually listened to Maya's interests, an art set from a brand Maya had mentioned wanting months ago. The expansion project progressed ahead of schedule, thanks largely to Lucas's organizational skills and Evelyn's vision. When the facility finally opened in September, a full year after that night in the restaurant, they stood together at the ribbon-cutting ceremony watching hundreds of new employees stream into a building they'd created together. We did this, Evelyn said quietly so only Lucas could hear. You did this, Lucas corrected. I just helped execute your vision. No, we did this. Partnership, Lucas. That's what makes things work. That evening, Hart Technologies threw a celebration for everyone involved in the project. It was held at the new facility, catered by local restaurants, attended by employees and their families. Lucas brought Maya, who'd insisted on wearing her fanciest dress for the occasion. Evelyn found them near the dessert table and crouched down to Maya's level. You look beautiful, Maya. Very sophisticated. Maya beamed. Thank you, Ms. Hart. Dad says this building happened because you and him worked together. Your dad is being modest. He made this happen. He's good at that, Maya said seriously. Being modest. Sometimes too modest. Evelyn laughed, catching Lucas's eye. You're raising a wise daughter, Lucas. She gets it from her books, Lucas said. Not from me. As the evening wore on, Robert Chen called everyone to attention for toasts and acknowledgments. He thanked various team members, praised the collective effort, then turned to Lucas. I want to recognize someone who joined Hart just over a year ago. Lucas Reed started in our warehouse, blew us away with his capabilities, completed our management training program in record time, and then helped build this facility from literally nothing. Robert raised his glass. Lucas, you embody everything Hart stands for. Thank you. The applause was genuine and sustained. Lucas felt his face heat as everyone turned to look at him, but Maya's proud smile and Evelyn's nod of encouragement kept him grounded. After the formal program ended, the celebration continued with music and conversation. Lucas was talking with Teresa about staffing for the new facility when he noticed Maya and Evelyn sitting together on a bench, deep in conversation. He drifted closer, not wanting to interrupt, but curious what they were discussing. And Dad worries about everything, Maya was saying, but he's happier now, less tired. He smiles more. I'm glad, Evelyn said softly. You both deserve to be happy. You helped us, Maya said with the blunt honesty of children. You saved Dad by letting him save you. Evelyn looked startled. What do you mean? Dad needed help, but he'd never ask for it. So you helped him anyway. That's brave. Maya leaned against Evelyn's shoulder. I think you're lonely sometimes, though. Like Dad used to be lonely even when we were together, because he had all the worries inside and nowhere to put them. Lucas held his breath, wondering if he should interrupt this surprisingly intimate conversation. But Evelyn just wrapped an arm around Maya. You're very perceptive, Maya. Yes, I'm lonely sometimes, even with all these people around me. Maybe you need someone to help you like you helped Dad, someone who sees you, not just the CEO part. Maybe I do, Evelyn agreed quietly. Lucas stepped back, giving them privacy, his mind racing. He'd been so focused on his own gratitude, his own transformation, that he hadn't considered what Evelyn might need. She'd spent a year helping him and Maya rebuild their lives, but who was helping her? The question stayed with him over the following weeks. He paid more attention to Evelyn during their meetings, noticing the exhaustion she tried to hide, the way she sometimes seemed overwhelmed by the constant demands on her time and energy. One evening in late October, Lucas texted her, "Coffee tomorrow? I want to talk about something not work-related." They met at their usual cafe near Green Lake, the same place where they'd had their first real conversation over a year ago. Evelyn looked tired but genuinely happy to see him. "What's on your mind?" she asked after they'd settled with their drinks. Lucas had rehearsed this conversation, but now that the moment was here, his prepared words felt inadequate. Maya said something at the celebration that got me thinking. She said, "You helped me, but asked who helps you." Evelyn's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. "I'm fine, Lucas." "Are you?" "Because I see how hard you work, how much pressure you're under. I see how everyone wants something from you, your time, your money, your decisions, your energy, and I wonder who gives back to you." "That's what being a CEO means," Evelyn said, but her voice lacked conviction. "It doesn't have to mean being alone." Lucas leaned forward. "You've given Maya and me so much. You've become part of our family, whether you intended to or not. And family means we care about you too. It means we want to help carry some of what you're carrying." Evelyn's eyes grew bright. "I don't know how to accept help, Lucas. I've spent my whole adult life being the strong one, the leader, the person with answers." "Then let me teach you," Lucas said gently, "the way you taught me. Start small. Have dinner with us once a week, not as CEO or mentor, just as Evelyn. Let yourself be someone's friend, not just their boss or benefactor." A tear slid down Evelyn's cheek. She wiped it away quickly, laughing a little. "How did you get so wise?" "I had a good teacher. She saved my life by teaching me it was okay to be saved." They started having weekly dinners after that. Lucas, Maya, and Evelyn, rotating between their homes and restaurants. Slowly, Lucas watched Evelyn relax into friendship, into being known beyond her accomplishments and responsibilities. She learned to show up empty-handed sometimes, to accept help with dishes, to laugh at her own mistakes. Maya adored her, treating her like an honorary aunt. They'd spend hours discussing art and books while Lucas cooked dinner, their conversation a comfortable background noise to his life. One evening in December, almost 14 months after that night in the restaurant, the three of them sat in Lucas's living room after dinner. Maya had fallen asleep on the couch between them, her head on Evelyn's shoulder. "She really trusts you," Lucas said quietly. "The feeling is mutual." Evelyn carefully adjusted so Maya was more comfortable. "I never thought I'd have this. Connection, family. I'd convinced myself my company was enough." "Is it?" Lucas asked. "No, it never was." Evelyn looked at him seriously. "You and Maya have given me something I didn't know I needed. Purpose beyond profit. Relationships beyond networking. A reminder of what actually matters." "You gave us the same thing," Lucas said. "A life beyond survival." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Maya sleep, and Lucas felt the rightness of this moment, the completeness of it. They'd saved each other in different ways, built something neither of them had planned, but both of them needed. Time continued its forward motion. Lucas advanced to full facility manager within another year. Maya's health remained stable, her condition managed so well that hospital visits became rare instead of routine. Evelyn gradually shifted from being their benefactor to being genuinely their friend, someone who showed up for birthday parties and school plays, who called when she'd had a bad day, who'd learned to accept help as gracefully as she gave it. They never became a traditional family, but they became something just as meaningful. A chosen family, built on mutual respect and care, on the understanding that sometimes the most important relationships begin in crisis, but endure because of choice. 5 years after that October night, Lucas stood in his new home, a house with a yard where Maya could play, in a neighborhood with good schools, and thought about how impossible this would have seemed when he was scrambling to afford her medications. Maya, now 13 and thriving, was hosting a small party to celebrate her latest achievement, a full year without any hospital stays. Evelyn arrived with a cake she'd made herself, slightly lopsided, but made with love. She found Lucas in the kitchen, arranging food on plates. "Need help?" she asked. "Always." He handed her a stack of napkins. "Thank you for coming. Maya was worried you'd be too busy." "I'm never too busy for you two." Evelyn started folding napkins with surprising efficiency. "You know, I've been thinking about that night, the restaurant." "What about it?" "If someone had told me then that choking on a piece of steak would lead to this, to you and Maya, to the friendships I've built, to fundamentally changing how I run my company, I wouldn't have believed them." Lucas smiled. "If someone had told me that saving a stranger would lead to a career I love and stability I never thought possible, I wouldn't have believed them either." "Funny how life works." "Funny how people work," Lucas corrected. "How one moment of choosing to help instead of looking away can change everything." They carried the food out to where Maya and her friends were laughing in the backyard. As Lucas watched his daughter, healthy, happy, surrounded by friends, he felt gratitude so profound it almost hurt. Later that evening, after the guests had left and Maya was helping Evelyn with dishes despite Lucas's protests, he stood in the doorway watching them. They were debating some art technique, their conversation animated and warm. Maya said something that made Evelyn throw her head back and laugh, really laugh, in a way Lucas had rarely seen before. This was what healing looked like, he realized, not just Maya's physical health, though that was miraculous, but all of them healing from the loneliness and struggle that had defined their lives before. Learning to let people in, to accept help, to build connections that went beyond obligation into genuine love. "Dad, you're being weird and watching us," Maya called out without turning around. "Just appreciating the moment," Lucas said. "Well, stop appreciating and come help dry," Maya ordered. "Evelyn's doing it wrong." "I am not doing it wrong," Evelyn protested. "This is how normal people dry dishes." "Normal people use dish towels, not paper towels. The environmental cost is worth not getting the towel all wet." Lucas joined them, settling into the comfortable rhythm of their banter, and felt the completeness of this simple moment. No crisis, no emergency. Just three people who'd found each other through impossible circumstances and chosen to keep finding each other every day after. On the anniversary of that restaurant night, Lucas and Evelyn had developed a tradition of exchanging letters, handwritten notes reflecting on the year past and the year ahead. They never discussed the contents with anyone, not even Maya. It was their private acknowledgement of how far they'd come and how much they'd given each other. This year, Lucas wrote, "Dear Evelyn, 5 years ago, I thought helping you was the most important thing I'd do that night. I was wrong. The most important thing was letting you help me in return. Thank you for teaching me that accepting grace is as important as giving it. Thank you for being Maya's aunt in all but name. Thank you for showing me what it means to build a life, not just survive one. With deep gratitude and friendship, Lucas." Evelyn's letter to him read, "Dear Lucas, 5 years ago, you gave me my life back. But more than that, you gave me a reason to value it. Watching Maya grow up has been one of my greatest joys. Watching you become the leader I always knew you could be has been an honor. But mostly, thank you for letting me be part of your family. For teaching me that success isn't measured in profits, but in connections, in love, in showing up for the people who matter. You saved me in ways you'll never fully know. With love and gratitude, Evelyn." They exchanged letters over dinner at that same Italian restaurant where they'd first become friends. Maya wasn't with them. She was at a sleepover, living the normal teenage life she'd once thought impossible, and Lucas and Evelyn took the rare opportunity to talk about deeper things. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if someone else had known the Heimlich that night?" Evelyn asked. If someone else had saved me? Lucas considered this. I think you would have still been grateful, still been changed by the experience. But we wouldn't be here, having this dinner, being in each other's lives. I'm glad it was you, Evelyn said simply. Not just because you were competent, but because you were you. Because your first thought after saving my life was getting home to your daughter. Because you showed me what real priorities look like. I'm glad it was you who needed saving, Lucas said, then laughed at how strange that sounded. What I mean is, I'm glad that moment led here, to this friendship, to everything you've made possible for us. They raised their glasses in a quiet toast, to chance encounters, to choices made in crisis, to the unexpected families we build from impossible circumstances. The years continued their gentle march forward. Maya graduated high school with honors, her chronic condition so well managed that most people didn't know she had it. She'd decided to study art therapy, wanting to help other kids who struggled with illness find creative outlets for their fear and pain. Lucas became one of Heart Technology's youngest senior executives, overseeing 3 facilities and mentoring new managers in the same philosophy that had changed his life, that treating people well wasn't just good ethics, it was good business. Evelyn expanded her company while maintaining its culture, proving that growth and humanity weren't mutually exclusive. She started a foundation focused on supporting families dealing with chronic childhood illness, directly inspired by watching Maya and Lucas navigate that system. They remained close through all of it, their friendship deepening with time rather than fading. They celebrated each other's victories and supported each other through struggles. They showed up for birthdays and holidays and random Tuesday evenings when someone just needed company. And once a year, on that October night, they sat together, sometimes all 3 of them, sometimes just Lucas and Evelyn, and acknowledged the strange grace of that moment that had changed everything. Do you think we would have found each other anyway? Maya asked one year, now in college, but home for the anniversary dinner. Like, in some other way? Lucas and Evelyn exchanged glances. I don't know, Evelyn said honestly. Our lives were moving in different directions. We might have passed each other 100 times and never really seen each other. But we didn't, Lucas added. We collided in exactly the moment we both needed it. You can call it chance or fate, or just random luck. Either way, I'm grateful. Me too, Evelyn said softly. Me 3, Maya chimed in, even though I was just the kid waiting at home that night. You were never just anything, Lucas said firmly. You were the reason I left, the reason I didn't stay for praise or recognition. You've always been my priority. And look what that priority created, Evelyn gestured around the table, at the life they'd built together. This, connection, family, proof that doing the right thing for the right reasons can lead to beautiful things. As they finished dinner that night, Lucas reflected on the journey from that moment of pure instinct, seeing someone choking and acting without thought, to this moment of pure intention, choosing every day to maintain the connections that mattered. He thought about the man he'd been, barely holding on, too proud to admit he needed help. He thought about Evelyn, brilliant and successful, but fundamentally alone. He thought about Maya, sick and scared but brave beyond measure. And he thought about who they'd all become. Healthier, happier, connected in ways that transcended the crisis that brought them together. The story could have ended that night in the restaurant, with applause and gratitude and everyone going back to their separate lives. But the real story, the important story, was what came after. The choice to stay in each other's lives, the choice to help and be helped, the choice to build something meaningful from a moment of crisis. That was the story worth telling, not just about a hero who saved someone's life, but about 2 people who saved each other in ways that mattered just as much. About a child who thrived because her father learned to accept help. About a CEO who built a company with heart because she learned what really mattered. About 3 people who became a family not through blood or obligation, but through choice, through showing up, through the quiet courage of letting themselves be known and loved. And in the end, that was the greatest gift of all. Not the dramatic rescue, but the everyday choice to care, to connect, to be present in each other's lives. That was what transformed a single moment into a lifetime of meaning. Lucas Reed had saved Evelyn Hart's life that October night. But in all the ways that truly mattered, they'd saved each other. And they continued saving each other, every day, through the simple act of choosing to stay. That was the real story. That was what made it all worthwhile.